Good evening, very warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our usual Monday night roundtable discussion. I'm Chris Bell, and as always, I'm joined by our esteemed panel of West Yorkshire pundits. That includes Stephen Downs, Jayson Boocker, Gareth Walker, and Lewis Sale. Good evening, gents. How are we all?
Very well.
Very well, sir. How are you?
Good. It's been a bit of a tumultuous week, shall we say, away from sport. So we'll try and keep this one nice and peaceful and civil. Downsy, Jayson, you hear me?
We're always friends. What are you on about?
You two always falling out nowadays. Me and Downsy relatively get on. Now that we're not in the same league and that.
He's a Muppet Lincoln fan, isn't he? So anyway, carry on.
The League One preview is tomorrow night. I'll use that plug now, where Downsy will be joined by, well, most of the league, if he has his way, by the sounds of it. I think you've got guests from a whole array of League One clubs coming on to talk about the 24-25 League One campaign. But we are going to start tonight with Leeds United. Just before we go on to Jay, don't forget you can get in touch with us here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Use the live comments on YouTube and Facebook to get your points of view across over the course of the evening. Jay, Leeds United then. Where are we at with all things Elland Road? What's the latest with Somerville? Where's he going? How much is he going for? And where does it leave you?
Where have you been?
I'll be honest,
in the news at all.
Slightly under a rock in the last few days. I've been in Scotland for a week. Honestly, you could ask me what happened at the SPL over the course of the weekend in Scottish League 1 and 2. I'd probably have an answer. But as for the rest of it, very little.
Yeah, so Mr. Somerville, obviously Championship Player of the season, has vacated for the Premier League, as most kind of would have expected him to do so. I think there were a small section of the fan base that kind of were getting the hopes up after Archie left that there might have been a chance that we'd keep him. I think that was always pretty unrealistic. So yeah, he's gone and joined what looks to be a bit of a dark horse in West Ham, making some big moves. I really like their signing of Fulkrug. I think he'll be a good signing, even though I don't really get the fee that they've paid for a 31-year-old. But that's another conversation altogether.
That forward line, really good. Fulkrug with Bowen, Kudos, Somerville.
Yeah, it looks.
Paqueta avoids the ban as well.
It looks snappy, doesn't it?
Tasty.
I think he'll do. Say again, sorry.
What's the fee for Fulkrug?
32 million.
Yeah, but it's a Euros fee. That's why they've had to pay it. If it wasn't a Euros and they hadn't performed, I think it would have been. I think it'd have been under 30 mil.
End of the day, he's still the Champions League finalist last season, and he's had a few good seasons. And I think, given the type of striker that he is, he's probably got a little bit more in the tank than a striker that would be maybe diminutive and quick. That's not what they've gone and wanted to purchase. So, end of the day, if he brings results and he gets the goals, it's worth the money, isn't it? It's one of them. So there's just not much return value on a player at that age, is there? That's the question. But I think he'll do great there. I think it's a great move for him. I think it's a middle move. I think if he'd have moved straight to a Liverpool or a Chelsea or a Man City or whoever, he'd have been in that position where he'd have maybe taken a too big of a step. And I think this allows him to play week in, week out. I think the fans will like him. He's a similar kind of mold to a couple of players that they've had there over the years. When I thought about him signing there, I thought of Ricardo Vazquez, who stepped up from the Championship to the Premier League with them. He just kind of is that kind of player. I think he'll do great. Sad to see him go, but that's the cost of not getting promoted to the Premier League. You lose your best players, especially if you're one of the better teams in the division. You lose these big players. And, there's been a lot of fallout this week with the fan base and the club and the 49ers, again, just picking holes in everything that they do. And I get some of this, because this week they've now reported that there were a release clause in the contract of Somerville, which was never mentioned before, and the local journalists were specifically told there was no release clause, and after selling Archie, they could command whatever fee they wanted. That's why me and Brownie have been on the shows over the last few weeks saying, look, we're going to command 35-40 million, we don't need to sell. But now it turns out that we did have a release clause, so that's been a little bit irritating, if I'm honest, because I've been very staunch in my defence of the 49ers and the reasons why they would want to do stuff in certain ways and the reason why they have, historically with us done things in certain ways. And then this kind of, it feels like they're trying to purposely mislead the local journalists, which is a problem because information that we're then getting as fans, we're all arguing amongst ourselves, and we can't really ever fully trust the ownership. That's kind of how it feels at the moment. So yeah.
Really, is it? Sorry, Jay. Really? I mean, I know that obviously we're relatively, well, I'll say unbiased. We're obviously biased to our teams, but the clubs are not going to come out, either, as we all know, and go, player X has got a release clause of X amount of million. I think they're obviously wanting to get the best value for the player, and if a club is potentially going to go over that release clause, then so be it. It's benefiting Leeds. I don't know. Am I missing something?
So I obviously I know we've got a bit to get through, so I don't want to spend too much time on this. But from what I've heard, Somerville had a release clause in his contract that allowed clubs that were partaking in European competitions to register an interest that we had to let Somerville know about. So it wasn't you hit this fee, we then have to sell you. It was you hit this fee and we have to make Somerville aware, to which then Somerville can say, yeah, I would like to explore that move. Now, West Ham made this interest known towards the back end of last season when they were still in European competition. And we kind of then have given them our word that we'd entered negotiations for the same money. But what's also happened in this pre-season, I mean, that's confusing enough. I've never heard anything really like that. But then what's happened in this pre-season is that Graham Smith, who is probably, now that Phil Hayes gone, our biggest connection to the truth in terms of all these rumours that fly all over the place, it's been given two pieces of information from the club this pre-season. The first was that Archie Gray to Brentford was on, done, deal, dusted. And then it wasn't. So Graham Smith reported the news as basically fact, and then 2 hours later had to climb back down and say, actually, no, that's not true. But he clearly got the information from the club. And then this has happened again with this situation with Somerville and potentially leaving, because he came out and said there was no release clause. Brighton had come in for with a bid for 30 million and we turned it down. So, and then he's gone to West Ham for 25 million plus add-ons. So it's all really odd and really strange. The 49ers have kept the cards close to the chest pretty much since taking over. And I like that way of doing business. You know, you don't know about a player signing and then it just drops. A player like an Ethan Ampadu as well, a Joe Rodon, big deals have just come out of absolute nowhere. And I do believe that you've got a better chance of making the deal happen when you operate like that. We saw it with Max Aarons last season. Max Aarons was in the car on the way up to us. He was going to sign, and then Bournemouth caught wind of what was happening, put a phone call into him, and he turned back around and went down to Bournemouth and signed for them in the Premier League. And that's because it caught wind of it, and that's what the media does. So I get it. You know, like we've got this situation with Johnny Rowe now, which I know we're going to get onto. It is definitely got huge legs. It's a big goer, and it looks like it's one that's, you know, probably will get through. But if a Premier League team decides to go and trump us, then they might steal a march. Now, he's had an injury background, and it could be said that Premier League teams might not want to risk on him just yet, because I don't know whether he's quite ready for the Premier League, so we should be okay. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it's now in the ether and being spoken about, it could happen.
And that exactly happened with the Alfie May deal at Huddersfield. That's exactly what happened there. He was at the training ground. He was halfway through his medical. He was about to sign the contract for Town. Birmingham came in last minute because Charlton said he's gone to Huddersfield. This is the wage that they're going to pay him. If you want to go in, you can offer him more. And he ended up leaving the medical at the training ground at Huddersfield, drove to Birmingham, did the medical and signed the contract, and was paid 4 times more than what he was on at Charlton, and twice more than what Town were going to pay, plus a £500,000 relocation fee.
Don't get me wrong, Dan. That can happen without the media involvement.
But the media was very public.
Yeah, agents talk and all the rest of it. Clubs even talk between them. So I get that it's not always down to that. But yeah, you're right. In conducting your business in private, it allows you to be better positioned, especially as a club outside of the Premier League, when you are competing with them, the bottom echelon of Premier League teams, because recruitment's difficult for a team that's trying to get promoted, because you want a player that's good enough technically to be in that bottom 5 or 6 of the Premier League, and you need to hope that just none of them want the player. So you are always fishing in a market where any given time a Premier League team could just come and say, yeah, we'll have him. It happened to us twice last summer with Sheffield United, with Hamer and and Cameron Archer. It happened with both of them and Max Aarons. So, I get it. I think the problem is like the comment Jayson's just put there is that it feels like the media are potentially misleading journalists. And I think when you do that with the local journalists, you create this kind of divide and conquer between the fans, because the fans are very skeptical anyway. We've had so many bad ownerships over the years that some fans are just waiting for an opportunity and waiting for a reason to kind of get on the 49ers back.
That's always happened, though, that with players changing their mind at last minute. Stuart McCall told a story about when he went back to Bradford in like 98, 99, that he was basically on his way to Barnsley in the car, and Bradford got wind that he was going and rang him up, and because it was Bradford, and obviously he's ties to Bradford, he turned around on the motorway and went back to Bradford.
Yeah.
It's happened. It's probably happened.
It's nothing new, is it?
It happens in every window. I mean, I've been in and around conversations with scouts and agents when I've seen these kind of things firsthand. So I know it happens. That's part of the game. I just think, I suppose as Leeds fans, we've been able to rely on local media, especially Phil here, for so long, that trying to get used to the new way of kind of conducting stuff is a bit difficult for some.
Yeah.
Jonathan Rowe, then. I mean, look, it seems that Leeds aren't the only club interested. The fee, I've seen on Twitter, it's around the 7 mil mark with at least the initial offers. Seems pretty low. Like, he's 21, he's English. Admittedly, he's only had one real season. That was his breakthrough year last year, having only had, 15 appearances over the 2 seasons prior to last season. But Christ on a bike, what a season he had for a Norwich side that were very inconsistent over the course of the season.
He's only got 12 months on his contract. That's the big pull. That's the big
surely
difference.
This is where it's going to make it more difficult for Leeds, though, because a fee as low as the rumoured 7-8 mil, whatever, is going to certainly attract interest from, you would think, other championship sides. And as we talked about, those at the lower end of arguably bottom half of the Premier League. And this is a player that in Jonathan Rowe is young, English, is always an English tax usually. But because of that 12 months, it seems that a club isn't going to have to pay that, really. I
think what really plays against Johnny Rowe in terms of a Premier League side taking a chance is his injury record. He missed around 3 to 4 months of the season last season with an injury. Going into the playoffs, I know that the first game when we played them at Carroll Road in the 0-0 draw of the playoffs was his first game in something like 4 months. I don't think he pretty much played the whole of this from January to the end of the season. So I think that is probably what will set him aside from somebody taking that risk. Because you're right, like for a Premier League team like maybe a Crystal Palace who have maybe got some gaps in their ranks, to sign him and maybe even send him out on loan for a season would make a lot of sense. We're definitely going to face some competition. There were some tentative rumours with Wolves being interested as well, but
seems to be quashed.
Yeah, I forget who had seen come out and basically said no, that's not the case. I think it was Alex Crook actually from TalkSport had come out and said no, they're not interested. Leeds are pretty much ahead of the queue. I don't think it'll be 7 million. I think it'll be 10 to 12 once we're done, because from what I'm hearing, Norwich are not going for 7 million, which makes sense. I think given the market, given the fees that some of the players have gone for, and given the fact that he's only got 12 months left on his contract, I think 10 to 12 million is probably fair. Whilst they're still commanding a decent fee, we're still taking a bit of a risk on a player that's had 4 months out for the last 6. So, and not played a lot of football, and like you said, has only had one big breakout season. But I think he's a very, very good replacement for Somerville, and it give us a lot of them characteristics that we're gonna lose. But I'm not massively in the camp, as I said to Brownie on a show last week, that we desperately need a replacement. In that position, if you're thinking of the left side cutting in, we've got Nonto, who's out and out a left midfielder or left winger more than he is a right winger. He's going to be able to play in his natural position now that he's gone, if he's still here, that is. That's another question. Brendan Aronson can play there. Jorginho Rutter can play there. What a player. Coming out pre-season in a minute. The guy's just a joke. He's just ridiculous. And we've got Dan James that can play there too. So we're not without options. That's 4 options for 2 positions, really. I would argue that we more need a 10 than a left winger. So, or an 8, another midfielder, really. So So yeah, but exciting, mate. It's an exciting transfer to kind of be linked to. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I do think there'll be one signing through the door before Portsmouth on Saturday.
The season, as you say, kicking off at the weekend. How are you feeling overall, and in particular for that game against Pompey the weekend?
4 wins from 4 in pre-season. 2 Bundesliga 2 teams, which I think represent very much, I'd say, the bottom half of the championship in terms of quality. Obviously, a comfortable win against Harrogate before we went over there, and then we finished off pre-season with a 2-1 win over Valencia, which flattered them, if I'm honest with you. And bear in mind, we're talking about a La Liga side that finished 9th in La Liga last season. They're not the force that they used to be. I remember the years of Valencia and Gaizka Mendieta and the likes playing in Champions League finals and winning the Champions League.
They always used to be that third team in Spain, didn't they? Always. Yeah. And then it's just turned. Yes, Vicente, he was. Ruben Baraka. Oh.
Yeah, they had some unbelievable. Our very own Pablo Hernandez as well in that squad. They were a great team, but they are still a force to be reckoned with. And I mean, I don't know for any of you if you've seen the game or seen highlights of the game. We absolutely played them off the pitch to the point where after Rutter scored his unbelievable finish, they just went to kicking us off the pitch, and they actually in a pre-season friendly ended up with 10 men. And they could have ended up with 9. It was actually a bit of a disgrace, if I'm honest. The 2 strikers, Rafa Mir ended up getting sent off, and I forget the other lad's name, but they were just kicking whoever they could get anywhere near. It was a disgrace. Bogle ended up getting a dead leg. He ended up coming off injured, which was disappointing. He's expected to be available for Saturday. But they got to that point because we were just dominating the game. We'd ended up in a 2-0 lead, and we were just knocking the ball around them, and they got irritated. I think they thought they were coming over to play a second division side that they could probably beat at a canter, and we just didn't allow that to happen. So, we were excellent. The football all the way through pre-season really has been far more direct. We've been going through the lines much better, and we've been penetrating with his passes rather than just always side to side, which has been nice to see. Joe Rothwell has been a bit of a revelation during pre-season, if I'm honest. He didn't start the Valencia game, but he's been excellent. And even when he came on in the second half, the game pace just changes. He's very, very clever. I thought it was going to be a very ordinary squad signing, to kind of make part of making the squad better. But he's really improved his levels in that midfield on what Kamara gave us, which was control and clever, but very side to side. So excited to see what he can do. Jayden Bogle's been very, very good down the right-hand side. I can see why Sheffield United was so disappointed to lose him. And then, obviously, Gio Rutter, just the jewel in the crown, isn't he? The guy's ridiculous. I mean, if we'd have signed him for 10 million, I'm almost certain he would have already left for 30 to 40 million because the PSR would have made sense. But because teams are not going to want to part with 50, 55 to make it worth it for us in terms of a PSR level, they're cautious to do that, and I get that. But he's just ridiculous. He's just so good. I mean, he was just having fun with them again the other day, and the goal. I mean, he makes it harder for himself than he probably needs to, but it's some finish, isn't it, Lou? I know you've obviously seen it.
Yeah, I saw the goals, and I think they're both quality goals. We all know the qualities you guys have got up front, and I think that's, like I say, that's even minus Somerville and minus probably one another. I think you'll be strong. I think, again, defensively you look strong. But yeah, the goals were outstanding against, like I say, decent opposition. But it's that whole thing where people remind you that you can't read anything in the pre-season friendlies. But if you've got players finishing like that and doing it comfortably and with a bit of quality and class, then you can't not read stuff into it, can you?
Mateo Joseph makes such a difference up there as well. I mean, he just looks ready now to lead the line for a championship club. A lot of people were calling for him last season. I weren't one of them. I fully understood the reason to go with experience in Perot and Bamford. But Joseph's come back in pre-season and he looks like a fully formed man now, rather than a bit of a boy body. You know what I mean? He's fully developed. He's very cold and composed in front of goal. There's a reason Spain have fought hard to get him to be there. To put the allegiance that way rather than at England, because he's represented England all the way up until recently, then moving over to Spain with the 21s. He's got some talent. If he can stay fit, he's been put in as championship as a favourite for championship top scorer, which kind of says that people are getting excited about him. So excited, mate. I'm really excited. I don't think there's anything not to really enjoy or be excited about. I understand some reservations with regards to the end of the transfer window. I do agree with Lou that we might end up losing one more. I think there'll probably be one more. I think it'll be Nonto. But I'm not worried about replacing them or, with calibre in the championship that can still get us promoted. So, that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, so another 4 weeks of the transfer window to go, which seems mad. Seems we're talking about the season opener then. So, Pompey at home, the lunchtime kickoff on Saturday. Give us your thoughts on that game specifically, and then I'm going to probe you for not just a prediction for the game, but how you think Leeds are going to do on the season overall. And we'll ask the other lads as well on these questions too.
Yeah, quite unlike me really, but I've not really kept up with much of the Championship other transfers that have been going on, so I don't know what Portsmouth are going to look like on Saturday right now.
Hello, Dave. You all right, Dave? You all right?
I know, right? Something I go and look at before the season starts, because I do get very interested in who the other teams have signed. But I know that obviously last season Portsmouth did what they did. And sorry, that's just my dog breaking into my room. Portsmouth obviously had a fantastic season last season. I don't imagine them to be this season's Ipswich, which I think a lot of people are trying to kind of make. I think Ipswich is such an anomaly. I just don't see that happening again. But they do have some, I know they have some talent within that team. And what I will say about Portsmouth is that they just have that feel of a club, I think, that can galvanise, and they very much can work off the momentum that they've created in League One. So I don't imagine Saturday to be an easy game, especially down at Fratton Park. I think if it were at Fratton, it's obviously Ellen Road on Saturday, but if it were at Fratton Park, I'd be really worried about that game, regardless of what we've got.
The one signing that they've made that I will mention to you, just because I know how much you rate him as a player, is Josh Murphy from Oxford.
Good player.
To be fair, when I was talking to Lou about this just before we came on, I was surprised actually to see him make the move to another promoted side. And I appreciate that Portsmouth have got perhaps loftier ambitions than Oxford United, but he's a player that, especially off the back of his campaign last year, I expected to go to a more established championship side, shall we say, than Pompey. But fair play to Pompey for bringing him in. And just judging by some of their other recruitment, they seem to have signed a couple of unknowns from abroad, but also some players that you look at and think, yeah, solid signings.
It seems interesting that nobody would be willing to take a punt with him, doesn't it? Especially only at 29. It's not like he's over the hill. And he had a great season last season, and obviously he's got pedigree and he's done it at this level before anyway. So I tend to agree with you. I think they'll be all right, Portsmouth. I think they'll probably stay up quite comfortably, if I'm honest, mid-table. I put them in a kind of bracket with a Preston or a Stoke, that kind of. I think there's some serious, and we might do a championship prediction at some point. The teams towards the bottom that I'm thinking, like Blackburn, as an example, I think they're really going to struggle. Really, I think they were lucky last season, and Schmodix is unlikely to still be there come the start of the season. So, I think they'll be absolutely fine, Portsmouth. And I imagine that they're going to give us a game on Saturday. They're going to be fully up for it. The crowd is going to be fully up for it. But I expect us to come through. I expect us to look good. The first 10 or 15 minutes will be interesting to make sure that we're... I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
This never happened. Family are doing gardening out front. That's what's happening. So I've shut her out, but now they must be doing something out there where she's kicking off in the background. So I'm sorry.
How can one person not be happy about the football season starting? Come on.
Dog's clearly not confident of a Leeds win on Saturday.
This is a dog named after Bielsa, by the way.
She is.
Let's mention that.
She's called Martha.
It's poor. I feel sorry for the dog if it's named after Bielsa, but there we go. I haven't met her, by the way. She's a nice dog.
Keep her away from Downser.
We've met, you idiot.
Right, come on then. League position and score prediction for Saturday. Start with the score prediction.
Score prediction for Saturday, 2-0 Leeds United.
And finishing league position for Leeds United this season?
Early yet, isn't it? Early. We have still got a few weeks yet, but I think we win the league. I think that's obviously. I mean, Downsy, you laugh and you've put us there as well.
Hey, I'll get on to my predictions in a minute, but
I think we win the league. I think we have the most quality. The one thing I will say is I don't think we're the most championship hardened ready team. I think that goes to Luton. I think there'll be a real problem Luton this season. I think if you finish in front of Luton, you go up automatically. That's just how I feel about it. I think they'll be second or third at worst. I'm really sorry.
I can't wait to click that up. By the way,
I'm not sure Marcy's agreeing with you, AJ, but we'll go on then down to
so I think we win the league, and I think it'll be between us, Luton, and Burnley, and I think Sheffield United will be an absolute mile away. Not that we've mentioned them directly, but obviously a relegated Premier League team. I'd be stunned if they even get the playoffs as it stands.
See, who's getting relegated?
Look, we're not doing these predictions now, Downsy. We don't have time. We're just going to focus on Leeds for now. So the score prediction was what? Sorry, Jay, because I'm assuming that Louis is going to be making a note of all this. Downsy, there we go. I'm giving you a job now, Lou. Downsy, what do you reckon for Leeds at the weekend and overall? I mean, we've already touched on the fact that in our group chat you have put Leeds to win the league.
Yeah, I have put Leeds to win the league. Unfortunately, if they don't win the league, it's a failure. And for Saturday, I'll go Leeds 3, Portsmouth 1.
Just to say on that comment about
no, we ain't got time, mate.
No. It's still the league section. It's still the league section. I don't think it's a failure if we don't win the league, but it is an absolute failure if we don't finish in the top 2.
No,
it definitely is. This squad, given another year of progression for this squad, is so strong. It's untrue.
If Leeds are at 7 points clear by October, Farker wants sacking. Anyway, carry on.
Gaz?
Both score and table finish.
Yes, please.
2-1 Saturday, and they'll win the league. And I think it'll be, probably Luton, the closest challenge. I mentioned Burnley as well in the group chat, but I think with Scott Parker coming in, you never quite know what will happen with a new manager. But Luton all Leeds to win the league, probably Leeds, and Leeds will win Saturday 2-1.
Scott Parker tax, innit?
Yeah.
Take 10 points off for Scott Parker.
I'd see.
I don't get
the dislike with Scott Parker at championship level. I just don't. He's a twice promotion winning manager who's walked into.
He struggled with two of the best teams ever at this level.
Chris, he spent 100 million at Fulham.
He still went up with them, though. He's still got 2 promotions.
Marcy could get
and he's going into a Burnley side that are not a frat shy of spending money. Like, I don't get that it's like. I really don't. Burnley are my winners for me.
They'll finish 4th and go through playoffs.
Just to say, everybody, Chris is the type of man to play Football Manager with every wallet, sort of like free agents, sort of like 100 million for like Bradford Park Avenue.
What?
Lou, what's your prediction?
Yeah.
3-0 Saturday and Leeds to win the league.
I'm going to go 3-1 win for Leeds on Saturday, but Leeds to finish in the playoffs.
Oh, God.
Right, let's sadly move on to Huddersfield Town and Stephen Downs. Talk us through all things Terrier.
So we drew against Sheffield United in pre-season on Friday night. Thought it was a good display. Personally, I know a lot of fans there's a bit of consternation of how good we actually were, but I thought we were pretty decent. I think Anthony Evans is probably going to come out as one of the best players of the season if he has as good a season as what I can hope that he predicts to have. Great set piece taker, had some lovely skill on Friday night and passing, and we look really fit as a team, and that's part of Michael Duff's non-negotiables, being fit and organised. We looked all right. We looked a decent striker off, absolutely, I think dominating a lot of teams. I think Reece Ely, if he can keep fit, he's going to be scoring 15 plus goals this season for sure. But the problem is when you take him off, Danny Ward comes on, and I think I've made plain that I like Wardy for his service to the club, although we've been very good to him as well. But that attack did slow down quite a lot when he came when he came on and Healy went off. So we still need a decent striker. We need a pacey centre back because all the centre backs are slow. But again, we won't come up against the quality of what Sheffield United have every week, and I'm really looking forward to the season. I'm glad it's here. I probably won't be glad it's here in about a month's time when I'm sat here and we've lost four opening games, but that's just Town for you. But I am actually really looking forward to the season. I'm glad that the Euros are out of the way. I've watched a little bit of the Olympics and people swimming and running and not being able to pole vault. But now I'm excited the football's back and ready to crack on.
In terms of the recruitment, though, Steve, we seem to have. I mean, you've almost been a bit like a broken record in the last 3-4 weeks or so in terms of.
Sorry, Chris, have I bored you?
No, but just in the sense that you've said we need a striker, we need a pacey centre half. Are they ever actually going to arrive, or are we seeing Town now struggling in the market, or are we just is Michael Duff fairly content actually with what he's already got? Because we haven't seen anywhere near as many outgoings as we thought we would go back to the end of the season either. So is he actually a lot more content, you think, with what he's got than perhaps we first thought?
I think he's come in and he's assessed the squad and clearly made some judgments in the tour that they went to Austria. I think that helped him a lot. Sorba Thomas has now been shipped off to France. And
what, literally, or?
Well, I don't know. He's probably gone on a plane over there, hasn't he? But he's gone to France on a season-long loan, and they've got an option to buy for around about, I think, $1 million.
Whereabouts in France?
Nantes. Yeah. Your pronunciation is better than mine, since you all took the mickey out of me saying ranking. But there we go. So he's gone to France. We've had Ben Jackson go to Barrow and also Nathan Eccleston, but Nathan Eccleston's only a loan. Ben Jackson was sold. I think it was the right move for Jackson, really, a young fullback who, came through the academy, has been at Town since the age of 9. Clearly wanted to make it at Town, but just not quite good enough. And I think it was the right time for him to move on. And I think it's a good signing for Barrow. Nathan Eccleston's a good young kid as well, coming through the academy. Was excellent in pre-season. So there has been a few outgoings. Like I said, not as many as probably what people predicted, but I think it's hard for you to ship such a relegation team. Like, nobody wants these players, do they? As much as what, you like some of them, and some of them have been here for a few years now. Not many clubs are wanting players that have been relegated and relegated pretty decently as well. Hellick, there's rumours still about that he might leave. Nichols as well. They were both taken out the leadership group, which they were in last year under every manager. Duff has named a different leadership team with Hogg still being the captain of that. I don't know how much you would read into that, really. I don't think it's as much to read into it. Duff seems to have this same sort of opinion as what Southgate does, and I don't know how much it goes on at other clubs, but there's a leadership group with different age players in there, like Headley's a young lad. I think Spencer's in there, and then you've got your older heads, such as your Hoggs and your Tom Lees and your Matty Pearsons that are in there. Incomings for striker and a centre-back. I think we will see something, but the club have been very tight-lipped, and as we talked about with Jay with Leeds, Town are doing a lot of business behind the scenes. They're trying not to be public. I think they got bit very hard with the Alfie May deal, if I'm honest. And I think a lot of people at the club were expecting that to come off, and it didn't come off, and Birmingham came in and stole him under our noses and embarrassed a few people. And I think now they've decided to sort of shut up shop and go behind the curtains, really, and not speak as much about transfers and things like that. So maybe it'll help us get a deal done. Joe Taylor at Luton is a possibility. Dom Ballard. I think it's Dom Ballard at Sunderland. He's scored a lot of goals in youth football. Played a few times last season for Sunderland. I think that's on the cards. Joe Hodge is
not really a pacey centre half though. Dom Ballard. He's a cracking player, but he's not particularly a quick one. As good as he's in the air at the back.
No, I think it's just an option that they're looking at, and it'll be a loan rather than a permanent. They're just waiting to see whether this can still do something with Joe Taylor. You say he's a centre-back. He also played up front for Sunderland. So I don't think he knows what he is, whether he's a centre-back or a striker, to be honest.
Are you talking about Dom Ballard from Southampton? Or Dom Ballard from Sunderland?
No, sorry, Southampton, not Sunderland.
I was about to say, because I was thinking Northern Irish international centre-half.
Sorry.
He was their main man at centre-back for Sunderland last season.
Sorry. Yeah, not him. But they are both called Dom Ballard, I think.
Yeah, Dom Ballard at Southampton's a striker.
Striker. Yeah. So that's my fault. I've embarrassed myself there. I should have known. But yeah.
What was the first time down to?
No, it won't be.
Won't be the last.
No, it won't be. But yeah, Joe Taylor's the one that I think we're really wanting to go for.
He's a tiny finisher.
Yeah, obviously you know him well from being at Lincoln last season. So there's a few options there. I think we will see something, but let's just see. Joe Hodge is the other transfer that's interesting. That's kind of rumbling on. There were suggestions that was done and dusted. A centre midfielder from Hull, Wolves. Jeez,
Wolves. Right
colour, wrong part of the country. But apparently he's been seen up at Hibs recently training with them. So. Yeah, I don't really know what's going on, Chris, but we do need a striker and a centre back. I think we're sorted now for midfield, if I'm honest. And depending if Nichols goes, I don't think we bring in a keeper anyway, because I think Chapman's third choice and he'd just automatically go to second choice. But I'm positive. I'm trying to stay positive. I just hope we beat Peterborough at the weekend, really, because they're one of the clubs that I really don't like. And I haven't invited them onto League One show tomorrow. Not because I didn't want to, it's just nobody answered.
Hindsight, sorry, Chris, just before you ask your question then. Obviously, we'd probably know movements are going to happen at Huddersfield, but at the moment, would you say your current squad, as is right at this moment in time, is that good enough to get promoted?
If Reece Healy stays fit and scores 15 plus goals, yeah. And Josh Karoma bags 10, and you get other players like Anthony Evans bagging some and Wiles. But there's going to have to be goals coming in from different parts of the pitch. I do think we're good enough to get promoted. But if we got somebody like Joe Taylor in, I think that would be not a certainty. Obviously, you can't be certain, can you? But I think it would be highly likely that we would definitely be even more likely to be up there. The transfers that I see from around League One.
That's fantastic. Highly likely that it will be even more likely for us to be up there.
Definitely more likely.
What a sentence structure that is down to. Tremendous.
But the signings, unlike Jay, who doesn't know anything about any other championship club, I have researched my League One opponent.
Yeah, you should do. You've got half at League On tomorrow.
Well, yeah, true. And I think, looking at their business, there's been some good signings at certain clubs, but I wouldn't say apart from Birmingham, anybody's gone out and really, really signed a lot of amazing players. Rotherham signed about 23 players, like Burton and.
So he always does that, doesn't he?
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Gaz, is
very good ones in there.
Yeah, there's some good ones, but then you don't know about some others. Do you know what I mean? They're not all stellar signings, are they? I wouldn't say personally from what I've seen.
You would be pushed to have 23 stellar signings, to be fair.
Yeah, I know you would, but my point is that I think he's banking on that this new squad is just going to be amazing, and it might not be. And I think Duff's taken a very more pragmatic look at the squad and gone, right, well, some of these players are clearly championship quality players. They've just been in a relegation battle for so many seasons that they're just tired of it now. Tom Lees, Matty Pitt. Let's not forget that some of these players we're in the playoff final against Nottingham Forest 3 seasons ago. They don't turn bad players just because they've been in a relegation battle. They've been in a relegation battle for a reason, and that's because people at the top of the club haven't been amazing at the decision making that they've made. Certain managers have not acted in a proper manner, and there's been chaos around the club for a season or two. And that's why we've ended up going to League One. I think under Duff now, the club's got a lot more professional. I think, they've clearly learned from last season at the top. And I think in Michael Duff, I've been really impressed. I've been impressed by him from day one, Chris, when I went to his press conference. I think what he says is really good. I think how he acts is good on the touchline. And I think the style of play from what I saw against what I've seen in every game, but I saw more comfortably on Friday, obviously because I was there in person. I like the look of. I really did. I think it was free flowing and it was decent to watch.
So it's about having a reset in it, because I think when you've been in relegation battles for a couple of seasons, and then players are then expected to win games on the regular, that can be really, really difficult. There's a big mentality switch there. The pressure changes. You go from, winning 1 in 5 to being expecting to win 5 out of 5. Like the whole kind of thing changes, and ethos has to change. And quite often that needs to come with a manager change, which obviously you've had. And it was similar to us at the beginning of the last season. I think there's a workload that comes in with that in itself. So I think you'll be all right. I mean, I know we're going to come up with predictions. But just coming to Rotherham, I think Rotherham will be really strong. I know that you've said about him signing a lot of players, but like Johnson, Clark, Harris at that level, I think that
I'm just going to bring in John's comment. He's right.
Well, Liam Kelly from Coventry, I think, is like a top signing. Like that is a top League One signing.
No, and there's Raggett and Rafferty were at Portsmouth last year.
And what I'm saying is they have signed some superb people. And yes, I do think that they will be up there. They're in my top 4. But all I'm saying is that sometimes with a new squad, that takes time to get, going. And
I would agree with you.
That's my opinion.
Sorry. I feel like the thing that I completely agree in most cases. However, Steve Evans, as much as I'm not a particularly big fan of him as a character, he just has this habit of doing it. It doesn't. It's not the first club that he's pulled players in from Christ knows where, and somehow he has this magical touch that makes it work. Before we come on to predictions, and in particular the game on Saturday, just to cover the comments, Ryan, League One, in his opinion, looks to be the most competitive English Pro League season. I genuinely think that it's a really even and really strong playing field. As John mentioned earlier on, he thinks that Rotherham have signed League One specialists. Ryan also saying that Wrexham has effectively had a League One team for the last couple of years, financially for sure. And then Ryan adding to Michael Duff and what he was saying in terms of the Huddersfield squad developing, saying that Duff is as good as he is. He needs to be backed perhaps a bit more than he has so far.
Well, he has been back though. He's brought Mikael Miller in, from a free from Plymouth, but a very good player. They've gone and signed Sorensen from Lincoln, as you well know, Chris. That was Lincoln's best player of the season last season, or one of them. We've brought him Herbie Kane, will be on a decent wage, and Anthony Evans. We've brought in one of the best set piece takers in the whole of League One, so he has been backed, and that's there's 4 weeks to go yet. It's not over. Just because the season starts on Saturday, it doesn't mean that any business cannot be concluded. And I think we will go out and sign some more people, but I think
this is what Ryan's saying though is he's got to be further back, because in terms of levels of backing compared to some other clubs, Peterborough, Rotherham, Birmingham, I think there is certainly still a lot more backing that Duff deserves, actually, and not just
they need that
backing.
They need to dip into a couple of big loan transfers. I think Huddersfield. There are a couple of big ones away from, I think, really being able to compete for the top 2. If they can go out and sign a couple of statement loans for a season from the Championship or even the Premier League, get into a Man City academy or, the 18s there and sign a couple that really make them stand out. And they surely should be able to do that.
Yeah,
I think they can properly compete.
I think you're underselling the value of Michael Duff. I really do. I think, you make some good points on loan signings, and that would be great. But I'll be honest, I don't want loan signings. They don't feel like your players. Like Joe Taylor from Lincoln had a magnificent half a season, but then got nicked and got sent somewhere else.
Yeah, but it don't matter, Downs, if they get you promoted. It literally don't matter in the slightest.
Well, you say that, but what about if we're top of the league come January? We've got 3 loan signings from Man City, Chelsea, and Liverpool's academy, and they go, I tell you what, in January we're going to take them back and we're going to loan them out to some Premier League clubs. It's not,
Yeah, but then you're not in that position without them in the first place. So I get that comes with the territory of a loan signing. I hear you, but I mean, again, fair enough. But then just negotiate the deal that there's no release. You can't recall because I mean, you know what I mean. I think to pass up on the potential of some of these players that will drop down for first team minutes, and a lot of first team minutes, would just be madness. It'd be absolute madness, and will be able to pull.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying if we got some in that were really class, then great. But we had some in the champion, and we did very well in the championship. Where we, let's not forget we had Ben Chilwell, Colwill, we had Emile Smith-Rowe from Arsenal. Some absolutely top class loan signings that are well remembered by Town fans. Overall, but. Then we've had some absolute stinkers like Ep30, who's now been gone over with Man City and he's part of their first team squad. But he was rubbish at Town. He was absolutely horrendous. I mean, he couldn't kick a ball. I don't understand how he was in Man City's team, academy team.
Throw some more comments out here. John, again, at Birmingham fan, I'm sure will be tuning in tomorrow night for our League One preview. Says he thinks a lot of Huddersfield will depend on who they bring us forward. They need a goal scorer. Now, this is the thing. I think he's right. I don't think it matters necessarily whether that is permanent or on loan at this stage. For example, if you were to be able to get a negotiated deal for Joe Taylor from Luton, I think if it came down to having to be a loan, you would certainly accept that. Actually, I think you could probably get the goals necessary to certainly have you challenging. John, also coming to your defence, though, promos don't tend to happen until the last week of the window. We know that from past experience, and we'll probably see quite a lot of that happening on deadline day itself. Ryan's comment, he says, of the 3 teams that have gone down, it's Huddersfield that he worries for. Let's turn our attentions then to the opening weekend. And in my opinion, you have possibly been handed certainly one of the top 3 toughest tasks of League One on the opening weekend away at Peterborough United, and a side for me that will be right up there as well, challenging for those top 2 places.
Peterborough are a very good side. We know in League One they are specialists of scoring 1,000 goals, but also conceding 1,000 goals.
Never dull at London Road.
No, it's never dull. They normally have 5-4 fixtures every 3 weeks. So anything can happen on the opening day. I think we'll go there with a steely determination. I want to go beat Peterborough just because of historical past things that have happened between the 2 clubs. I do not like them, I'll be honest. I think they're a club that don't do things in the right manner. I think they've got a loud piece at the top of the club that speaks some absolute crap.
Wow, I feel like you are.
Somebody's not bitter.
No,
the irony. We put it.
No, I do not like Peterborough United whatsoever, and they're one of our former rivals, and it was delightful to send them down in 2013. And I'm sure that there'll be a great atmosphere at London Road at the weekend. We've taken more than they've had to give us extra tickets because we've packed out the away end. So it's going to be an interesting fixture. I think they're a good team. They've lost some players though, some very good talents that were their top talents last season. I know that they've got the lad from Altrincham. Dave will be ecstatic about that.
He's a hell of a talent. He's Chris Van Clark. They've signed some really good players in this.
They have, but they've lost some players as well. So let's see. Let's see. I'm confident though, Chris. I'm going, and I could mince my words, and people can clip it up and do whatever they want with it. But I'm going to say Town are going to go there and win 3-1 on Saturday. I am.
Sweet Mother of Christ.
I'm confident that the boys can go there. Duff will want to get off to a good start and show it. And show what I don't understand. What's funny?
John is what's funny. Did he really just have a pop at the Peterborough owner for his media work when their owner sounds like a crackpot on YouTube? I mean, I'll be honest, mate. It is very
John.
Yeah, John has just said what the rest of us were thinking there, I think. Because as much as I love Kevin Nagle, for you to say that you like take a swipe at Darren McAntony is remarkable.
Yes, but Darren McAntony's been doing it for years and years and years.
And speaks a hell of a lot of sense in the process.
Yeah, no,
he does.
Yeah, he's great.
He speaks some sense, but then he speaks a lot of crap as well. And I'll be honest, I like the way that he the way that he disrespected us in 2011. I don't think can be forgiven. So,
and where you finishing this season?
Yeah.
Sorry, are you wanting to get this bit of the chat done? That's fine.
So you've gone for a 3-1 Town win, and finally, where are Town finishing this season?
Well, I think we'll finish top 2, but I know that probably the rest of you don't agree with that. But I'm going to be confident top 2. I can't say win the league because Birmingham will win the league.
Let's cheer you up and get Jay's take on Huddersfield Town this season.
Yay! Finish bottom, relegation.
No, don't be silly. Don't be silly. I think you'll just survive. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I won't put it past you, Jay.
No, I like Michael Duff. I think at League One, I think he's a top appointment. I thought he was brought into the wrong job in the Championship for him, for the club that he went to. I think, what he's done at Cheltenham and at Barnsley, I think you've employed the right person. I would have probably argued that he'd have stood a better chance at keeping you up than Brian Wrighter did. I think I said that at the time, if I'm honest. I think you'll be in and around. I think you'll still be one of the teams to beat. I can't look past Birmingham because they've just got monster money and monster resources, and they've kept some good players. I think they'll win the league, and I do think Rotherham will be second, if not win the league also, because I think they're more League One ready than Birmingham almost.
In the dugout in particular.
Yeah, I just think some of the players that they've got. Johnson Clark-Harris, I mean, if you can get the most out of him at League One, he's
a cheat code.
He's a cheat code. He's Ivan Toney of League One. He's literally what he's like. So, to give you my prediction, I think Huddersfield will finish in the playoffs. That's just the way that I see it. I think them two will just have too much, but they'll be in and around. I do think they're probably 1 or 2 short. And if I were a Town fan, I'd be desperately trying to look at what loan signings I can get through the door. But you're right, there's plenty of window to go, and some of them will show up later on in the window. As for Saturday, I think it's a really, really tough game. They have lost Ronnie Edwards, they've lost Harrison Burrows. They lost. I saw him the other day, Josh Knight at Hanover. He was playing in the friendly against Leeds. So they have lost some of their best players, obviously Johnson Clark-Harris as well. But I don't think he played much last season.
He wasn't in favour last
year. Yeah. So, but still, and they've replaced. Obviously, they've got Con Clarkin, which I think is a top sign, and they've signed the young lad from Crewe, the left back, to replace Harrison Burrows. He's meant to. I've not seen
Rio Adebisi. He's a cracking little player.
They always do this, Peterborough. They always lose the talent and re-recruit. They've got a great recruitment process there. I've got it. Unfortunately, and this is no dig. I think Peterborough will win at the weekend. It's just one of them first opening day games of the season where you'd expect a strong home team that are fully ready for it to do. But I think the boys will do you proud. I'm 100% believing that they'll be behind Duff. And if you get a point out of that, I think you'd be absolutely buzzing, if I'm honest with you, to start the season off with. I know that's a bit flat for the opening day of the season, but to go to Peterborough, who will almost certainly finish in the top 6 and take a point, I'd be buzzing with that personally. So that I think 2-1 to Peterborough at the weekend, but I do think Town will get the playoffs.
Gaz?
I think in the group chat, I put Town to finish second. I didn't actually follow League One close enough, but read about obviously later on that who Birmingham's new manager was, and I think I do have them to win the league, but I think that it could go either way with a new manager and a young manager like
Chris
that.
Davis.
It's not nailed on that they will, but I have put them to do it, but they might not, if you know what I mean. I've put Town for second, but I think that Rotherham and Bolton will really run them close. They're my top four: Birmingham, Rotherham, Town, and Bolton. After that, like you said, probably Peterborough are always there and thereabouts. But looking at the players that they've lost, I think Town can go there and get a result on Saturday. I don't see why not. I think that Duff is a great manager at League One level. He's done it, like I say, got promoted out of League One, got promoted out of League Two. Swansea, Jay, like I said, bad move for him going to Swansea, but Town looks like a good fit at the moment. And I think that I don't see why they can't go and get a result there. I think they've got the squad to do it. And like I say, if they bring a couple of players in that Downsy wants, a centre-back and a striker to go with Healy, they should get second, but it'll be tight with Rotherham and Bolton.
What do you reckon then? Score prediction for Saturday? Do you reckon what do you reckon they're taking back from London Road?
2-1 Town.
Well, there we go, Dancer. Gaz is on side.
Me and Gaz, brothers, always stick together.
There's always one odd one in siblings, isn't there? Lou?
Oh, wow.
You're lucky I said odd. Go on, Lou. What's your thinking for Huddersfield at the weekend?
Where do I start? I think for the weekend, I think both are going to cancel each other out. I think it'll be 1-1. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think both teams are going to, I think will not struggle. I think they will take a little bit of time to gel together, especially with Peterborough losing 3 key players. And I think the way Huddersfield are going to set up this season, it's very clear of what Duff wants from his team, how he's going to set up. I don't see much flex in that system, which if your plan A doesn't work, does he make plan A work a bit better, or does he go for plan B? Because it's quite clear he's going to go 3 centre-backs and 2 wing-backs. So I'm going 1-1, and I think in terms of the league position, I think Birmingham will win it. I think Bolton will finish second. I think Town are in a cluster of teams, and I think that depends on the mid-season recruitment of do they get in the playoffs. I think you can count Rotherham in there. I've actually gone for Peterborough just to fall outside just because of the calibre of players. I think Charlton will be a dark horse in there. I think Charlton will go well. And I also think the likes of Blackpool could potentially surprise a few as well.
Bring that up at the same time. Ryan's comment here. He says for Huddersfield scraping the playoffs. He says Birmingham, Bolton, Peterborough, Barnsley, and Rotherham will challenge with teams like Wigan, Blackpool, and Wrexham in the mix. He's not wrong.
Yeah, no,
there is absolutely no guarantees. I don't think.
I agree.
I think there are so many teams that could beat Huddersfield to the playoffs if the season doesn't go as you want it to.
I think Wrexham and Stockport are going to be both in around it. I'm telling you, Stockport
made some right signings.
They've made some monster moves.
The thing with Stockport is it's very similar to what you're saying about Peterborough. They've had a bit of a, what do you call it? A lot of players going out and a few players coming in. Do you know what I mean? A bit of a change around there. Yeah. But they've made some good signings. They'll be similar to Wrexham. And whoever put that comment up there, and I think one of you just mentioned it, it might be you, Lou. Blackpool, I think they're a good shout as well. I think Neil Critchley, good manager. I think he knows what he's doing there. He's done it before, and I think you can see him doing it again.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And that's why I've called it out. I think we've got a good set of players. I think Wigan, obviously, despite their troubles last season, probably won't have that hanging over them hopefully this season. So that's, a little bit of a change off the field as well that I think will catapult them up the table a bit more. So I think there's a group of potentially 7 or 8 teams that'll go for the playoffs. And I think Town are in a reasonably strong position. Yes, I agree with what Steve said earlier. I think recruitment, the areas that we need. What would concern me, as in that cluster of teams, is the likes of Wrexham could pretty much blow a lot of them teams out of the water with money, which might not work in a favour, but probably will work in a favour because they could probably match, or if not better, some other clubs' valuations, wages, everything that goes along with it. So 1-0 for Saturday, and I think Town will finish 6.
Just before you move on, Chris. Looking at Stockport, it could be spot on down to. Stockport have signed Luis Fiorini from Manchester City, who is a real talent. Right?
We had him at Lincoln on loan. I mean, to be fair, when he came to us, he was about 19, I think. He was probably one of his first loan moves out, and on his day was superb. He was just that you could tell he was young when he came to us, but since then he's had loads of elsewhere and he's gained a lot of experience.
They've got Lewis Bate from us, who I think is a top League One signing. Callum Connolly from Blackpool, who I know has had a good season last season. Jack Diamond from Sunderland, who I know is well rated. Really good signing.
Now he can get his football back on track, shall we say, after his misdemeanors last season.
Sam Hughes from Burton, who's a proper centre back.
He's 6'6", he's huge. Yeah. I mean, he's a great foot manager signing.
Louis Barry, who we all know about from Villa. I'm telling you, Downsy, like they are seriously.
Well, they've got the pair from Colchester, Mengi and Fevry as well.
Yeah,
they'll be challenging up there as well. So, and this is a thing. Stockport and Wrexham have got a bit of dollar about them, so they're not ones to write off. Which it sounds harsh against Downsy, but it makes this division even harder to possibly get out of this season. I would argue, and I agree with what Ryan said earlier, I think League One is probably the toughest league it has been, I'd say, in a long time to get out of.
Yeah.
There's no guarantees. There's not even guarantees Birmingham going to win it, despite the money. There's no guarantees.
Birmingham will win it.
Not so.
It should, but there's no.
They should do, Downsy, but there's no guarantee they will.
The signings that they've made are disgusting, really. But I agree that there's teams that have made a lot of good signings. I can't lie. I've just got to be confident behind my own team, and I think, I am confident in Michael Duff's ability to make up the fact that if we don't sign, mega amazing players, that his managerial nous can get us through.
I'm fully here for the meltdown in 6 weeks.
I'm fully here for the meltdown when Farker's not produced out by October.
Oh, here we go.
I was nice with Lincoln and Skabula the other day, by the way, in my League One ranking show. Go watch it. Skabula.
For what it's worth, predictions-wise, I'm going to go for a 3-2 Peterborough win because Peterborough means goals. And honestly, at this stage, I think a lot of the comments are spot on. I could genuinely be like, Huddersfield will finish anywhere between 4th and 9th because there's that many sides, and I think it will be very, very close. Honestly, I could throw a dart at the league positions in the playoff hunt, and that'll be it. I'll go for Town. Do I give him heartbreak? No, 6th. I reckon you'll make the playoffs. But genuinely, as numerous comments have said, there are a whole host of teams. Like, even for Lincoln, coming so close to the playoffs last season, I am well resigned as a Lincoln fan thinking we're probably going to end up finishing like 10th or 12th. When really, after the end of last season, I thought we've got a good chance of making the playoffs this season. But with the way the summer's gone for a lot of League One sides, I'm like, I don't think Lincoln are going to do it. So as much as I want to back Michael Skabala, I want to back him. I just think there's going to be too much competition for those playoff places.
Can I just ask on Birmingham before we move on to Bradford? Who's been brought in as the number 1? Is it Peacock Farrell or is it Ryan Alsop from Hull?
It's Ryan Alsop, but they've brought in Peacock Farrell as the number 2.
Let's be honest, that's the League One equivalent of last season Arsenal having Ramsdale and Raya. That is what I would class. At League One level, that is 2 number 1s.
I think Alsop's played most of pre-season as number 1, from what I understand.
So, I think he's a better keeper as well.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is.
And he's got experience at League One. I know Peacock Farrell's a good, half-decent keeper. But
how Peacock Farrell ever got that move to Burnley, though, was just beyond me. He was always below average at Leeds.
Yeah.
All
I want to say is to finish off the section, thank you, guys. I am now looking forward to return the favour in this League 2 preview. So, cheers,
you're going to have to be positive because I'm not.
Oh, Jesus, the negativity starts now.
Buckle in, ladies and gents. Let Gaz go.
Just one other thing. Jake Edwards, the CEO, is doing a big interview on Radio Leeds tomorrow with Paul Ogden, so there will be some interesting things, I think, to come out of that from a club-wide general perspective. So, please do tune in tomorrow for my League One preview.
After Downsy said that Alsop has started most of the games in pre-season, I'm just going to let John correct him by saying Bailey Peacock Farrell's been playing. He started the pre-season games mainly.
John,
you have
shut
got,
up, John.
Downsy, you have got less than 24 hours to get your research in order for tomorrow night's League One preview. At this rate, he's going to be predicting like Yeovil Town to win League One.
Oh wow.
John,
In fact,
someone ban John.
Keep John in.
We need to keep John. I mean, fair play, John, by the way, for being a Birmingham City fan and watching the West Yorkshire Football Show. So he's only here for Downsy's meltdowns, I reckon, for the course of the season.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing more of John.
This is tremendous. Yeah, you've got 24 hours to get your research up to scratch. And as we learned from the Peterborough thing earlier, clearly, as far as Downsy goes in League One, he's definitely stuck in 2011 to 2013. Right, Bradford City. Just keep going, John. Look at the last pre-season game. That'll be the starting lineup. There we go. He's giving you a tip for tomorrow night there.
Thanks, John. Yeah. Cheers, John.
Onwards, Gaz, to Bradford City and to League Two. After the optimism of Jay and Leeds going to win the league, or top two at least, and Downsy, Huddersfield going to make top two. Are we getting some optimism from you, Gaz?
Realism, I think, Chris, is the word.
This is where Gaz we're finishing 19th.
Because as I always say, when it comes to Bradford, it's so bipolar. You've got them that think we're going to walk the league, and then you've got them that think we're going to go bust in next 2 weeks. So I'm always somewhere in the middle and like to take the middle ground. I think we'll finish 8th. That's my prediction. I did look at the table the other day, and that's where I think we'll finish. But we're not as bad as some people make out. We're not as good as other people make out. So, yeah, somewhere balanced for me, I think.
How middle ground do you have to be to predict your own heartbreak of missing out on the playoffs by 1 league position before the season is even started?
It's just looking at the other teams in the league for me and the business that they've done. We've got a
fair play, Gaz. That's more than Downsy's done in League One. So
shut up, Chris.
Go on, Gaz. Sorry, mate.
Tough start on Saturday. I think it don't get any tougher. You talk about obviously Towns having a tough start at Peterborough away. We've got MK Dons away, who I think will win the league. Obviously, it's funny. Open game of the season, strange things can happen. I think Wrexham played MK Dons first game of last season and got absolutely thumped. And obviously, Wrexham finished second in the end and went up automatically. And MK Dons missed out in the playoffs. Obviously Graham Alexander was manager at MK Dons then as well. Yeah, it's a really tough start, but it's just really tough being a City fan. You know where we should be, you know where we want to be, and where we think we should be. But I just have 9 times out of 10 I have the disappointment that I just don't ever think we'll really fulfil that potential. What I will say is that I like the fact that we've not had too big an overhaul of the squad this summer. There is probably areas that we could improve, and I would like to see us improve before the end of August. But keeping the bulk of it makes a refreshing change from having wholesale changes, and I would like to think that will be beneficial throughout the season.
Just going to bring in Ian's comment. Ian, a regular watcher of the show. How he does it, I don't know. Too much unrest bubbling under at Valley Parade. Couple of poor results. It will all kick off again. It's his take. I mean, look, we as you were saying about the City fan base being fairly opposite ends of the spectrum. Can you see that happening if the results don't go early doors, or is it going to need a good start for Graham Alexander's own future to kind of get himself beyond October, November time?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always the same. If you're not in the promotion picture come October or your results haven't been great, the fan base turns toxic very quickly. You've got fans lined up already that aren't happy with the business that's been done this summer. I'm more happy now with the squad that we've got. Now I've looked at it. I think that it's pretty steady for League Two. I think it'll do all right. Like I say, I think we'll be in the playoff mix. But people are saying that obviously we've talked about it a lot on the pod and a lot in the group chat, the comments that Stefan Rupp supplementing the budget and people looking at the signings and saying that's not been shown in the signings that we've made. So there is an undercurrent there already, as Ian says, bubbling under, and it will turn, as it always does, if things don't go well. I think there is more business to be done, even though, like I say, I'm reasonably happy looking at the squad that we've got. I think it's evident that we need to bring in some cover for Richie Smallwood in defensive midfield. I believe that will probably happen late in the window because it's pretty well known that we're trying to move Kevin McDonald on. Now, he's probably on fairly big money, and I don't see us probably bringing in that cover for Richie Smallwood till he's gone. Other than that...
How likely is that looking at this stage? That Kevin McDonald will exit Valley Parade?
There's been nothing said, Chris. He didn't go on the Austria tour. So make of that what you will, but the last comments that were made in the press that's no nearer to happening, him going at the moment. There were also obviously comments about him being disruptive, and that was a bit of a surprise to a lot of City fans because he was obviously player manager at the time last season. A lot of them wanted him to get the job, and he's a long-term pro, so the rumours of him being disruptive were a bit of a shock. But
yeah, what likelihood do you reckon of him being there going to the final week of the transfer window and a mutual agreement being made for him to depart?
That would be my prediction, Chris. I think he'll go in the last week. Now, whether that's early enough for us to bring a replacement in, I don't know. But yeah, I would imagine there's a mutual termination will come at some point if there's no interest in him before.
I mean, Ryan's made a point of who's going to take you at 35. Some clubs will, to be fair, because of the fact that he's got that experience, and there are certainly dressing rooms at League Two level, etc., and perhaps a level below that are lacking that experienced head. So surely it's not completely impossible that somebody will take him.
Yeah,
but then you hear the disruption thing.
Especially if it's a mutual termination, once he's gone, he's free to go wherever he needs to go there. So my prediction would be that's what will happen. Whether it will or not, I don't know. There are other areas of the squad that I'm not 100% happy with. A lot of City fans aren't happy that Tyreek Wright's going to be first choice left wing back. Would have liked to have seen a more specialist brought in to play that role. He's a winger that we're trying to convert into a wing back. Few people that went to the game at Altrincham on Saturday said that we were better when Lewis Richards came on and played at left wing back. So that's a little bit worrying. The defence looks better. We've signed Jack Shepherd from Barnsley on loan. Guy who had a strong non-league career. I believe he was at Pontefract Collieries for a while. Signed for Barnsley last summer. Played a handful of games for Barnsley. Their fans seem to rate him quite highly. He's been on loan at Cheltenham towards the end of last season. It's interesting that Cheltenham's manager is now Barnsley's manager and has let him go on loan to us. But he is that left-hand sided centre-back that we needed. We only had really Kieran Kelly who could play there, so we needed some cover for that left-hand sided centre-back. He's meant to be a bit of a ball-playing centre-back, which is something that we needed. The only other ball-playing centre-back that I would say that we've got is Aidan Baldwin, who's been playing right-hand side of the centre of the three centre-backs throughout pre-season. In the last couple of friendlies, he was injured at the start of pre-season, but in the last couple, he's been playing right-hand side. So it'll be interesting to see whether Kelly or Shepherd plays left-hand side. The only thing that worries me about those centre-backs is the lack of pace. When you're playing three centre-backs, if your wing-backs get caught up the pitch, those two flanking centre-backs need to be able to get out and need to be able to get back. And that lack of pace at centre-back is a bit of a worry for me. So my two issues are left wing-back and centre-back. But I think our business is done there. I think we will bring in some cover for Richie Smallwood, but that will probably be when Kevin McDonald and possibly Adam Wilson moves on. Adam Wilson went on the tour of Austria, but hasn't been in the squad for the last couple of friendlies. And he was rumoured with Kevin McDonald as being someone that was available for transfer earlier in the summer. So the third one that was mentioned, who hasn't gone yet, there were a few others that mentioned that have. Timmy Odesina left, Ash Taylor left. The other one that was mentioned as being available that hasn't gone is Verdane Oliver, but he now appears to be back in the plans. He's featured in every pre-season friendly. He went on the tour to Austria. Maybe it's a case of him being on too big a money. We can't get rid of him, but he's probably as good as you're going to get as backup for Andy Cook. So
he's fairly proven, isn't he, at League Two level, and you look back over his career.
He had one really good season at Gillingham that we signed him on the back of. I think he got 20 goals. The season before that, I think he got 11. Before that, he's never really been a prolific goal scorer, but he came in on big money with a big reputation, so we're going to struggle to move him on. If he's happy to stay and Alexander's happy to keep him, like I say, you're probably not going to get much better as you cover for Andy Cook, because everyone knows that Cookie's going to start. So the front players at the moment are Cook and Oliver, Jake Young, Callum Kavanagh, and Tyler Smith. Rumour this week has been that Jake Young is being subject of interest again from League One clubs.
He needs to go, Gaz. Don't he? For the best for everyone, I think now.
It's an interesting one. He featured in all the early pre-season friendlies, but the last two, he's been on the bench, and it was telling that in the Olsham game on Saturday, they brought every striker on, and he was the last one that came on. There were rumours, obviously, under Hughes. Hughes bombed him out, tried to get rid of him. He obviously went to Swindon in the end. Hughes was apparently not happy with his level in training and said he doesn't put the effort in training. Now, whether Graham Alexander has not said that at all. Graham Alexander said he's part of the plans. Graham Alexander fought hard to bring him back in January from Swindon and wanted to keep him. Graham Alexander has made no negative comments about him whatsoever, but people are reading into him, looking like at the moment he might be last choice striker, and obviously what Hughes said about him previously, that he might go, that he wanted him out, that obviously Hughes wanted him out, sorry for being a poor trainer. So people are putting two and two together. They might be coming up with 5. But if he's not going to play, you're right, Jay, he's got to go. The worry is that obviously we're going to get less of a fee for him now than we would have got in January.
Yeah.
Stevenage are being linked and Crawley are being linked, obviously League One clubs. If he goes to Stevenage, he'll be hooking back up with Dan Kemp, which was obviously a successful partnership in League Two for Swindon last year. If he goes, I would imagine we will bring another striker in. We look like we're going to be playing 3-5-2, so we need 5 strikers really. We do have Harry Ibbotson as the 6th striker, lad who's come through the youth ranks, who's obviously been given his first professional contract, but he's not really featured in pre-season either. So if Young goes, I would imagine we'll bring one in. But the main business now will be that cover for Richie Smallwood. I think even David Sharp mentioned it in his interview a couple of weeks ago that if we move players on, that would be the next one we'd look at.
I did see in a week or two ago, Gaz, and I don't know how true this rumour was, and I had no idea where it came from, and I don't even know if it was like prevalent on City forums and stuff, but Matty Pearson from Town was supposed to be of interest to Bradford.
Really?
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah, I don't know how prevalent that was on the
very
Bradford.
Let him go, Downsy.
Yeah, well, I didn't see anything in it, but I did see it was quite prevalent on Twitter a week or so back that Bradford were seriously interested about looking at him. Now, Town wouldn't sell him for a lot of money, if I'm honest. He's not, he's 30, whatever, and he's like an old-fashioned sort of centre back. So
surely he'll be on a fair bit though, even with the relegation wages and that sort of thing. But surely he'll be on more than Town. He'll be on more at Town than City could afford to come anywhere near.
I would think so. Yeah.
He's from Keighley, isn't it?
We
were linked with him when he left Stanley. Obviously, did he go straight to Town from Stanley? Is that where you got him from?
Luton, wasn't it?
No, it was Luton. Yeah.
When he was at Stanley, even maybe when he signed for Stanley and when he left Stanley to go to Luton, we were linked with him then. But that's obviously going back a long time, and I would imagine the financials just won't work. And also now we look pretty well stocked at centre back unless someone was to leave.
I just thought I'd mention it, Gaz, to be fair, because it was something that I'd seen. So.
I love him at City.
I was going to say,
I just don't see it happening.
It's one of those massive ifs, but if he ended up at Bradford in League Two, he's probably one of the best centre halves in the division by a distance. Really,
I really don't see it. There are rumours that obviously you'd have to have one go because we have 5 centre backs at the moment. So even though we're playing 3-5-2, I can't see bringing another one in unless maybe Sam Stubbs seems to be last choice. If he was to go, we might. The only other issue I'd like to raise is we've trialled a couple of keepers in pre-season. Now, the keeper issue at City is a bit baffling because Colin Doyle has been goalkeeper coach and number 2 for the last couple of years, and he was on the list as being offered a new contract at the end of last season. He's been around all pre-season. He's been on the bench in most pre-season friendlies, but there has been no announcement that he has signed a new contract, which is really, really odd. Even if he's only staying as coach, or even if you would imagine that in some announcement somewhere he's offered one. He was offered a contract at the end of last season. It was put in the press release that he was offered a contract to remain as goalkeeping coach and number 2 goalkeeper, which is the role that he's had for the last couple of years. But that deal has not been announced, and we have trialled a couple of keepers in pre-season. So City fans are a little bit like, what is going on there? Has he signed? He's staying because he's been to Austria. He's on all the training videos. He's been on the bench for a couple of pre-season friendlies. But why that's not been announced, I don't know. And obviously with us trialing a couple of keepers, it makes you wonder if we're looking to bring a number 2 in and he's going to just be the coach. So I don't know.
Well, that's probably why they haven't announced it, guys, because they're probably looking at these other keepers, deciding whether they want to put them on a contract. And if they don't think any of them's good enough, they probably will announce him as the number 2.
It'll be 5-3 on Saturday, Gaz, because they'll be umming and ahhing over the trialist keepers and what the options are, and if they can get one over the line to sit on the bench for Saturday, happy days. If they're all like, well, we're not quite that sure on it, chances are Colin Doyle will get that contract at 5-3.
It's a really strange one, though, isn't it? Sorry to interrupt you guys. We've had the same thing with Liam Cooper, who obviously has been with the club 10 years now. He's been as captain for the best part of that 10 years. And he's still not had it. We've still not had any acknowledgement 5 days before the season starts whether he's accepting the new contract or not. He's not been involved in any of the preseason. There's not been any media outlet about him leaving. They've done all of that for Ayling and a few of the others. The Bielsa kind of gang. Big eulogies about how they've left. And Liam Cooper's still not accepted a contract anywhere else. And there's been no noise from anybody within Leeds. It's really strange that you'd have a situation like that with Colin Doyle a few days before the season started.
Yeah, it's really odd. City of Norman, it's just really odd. Like I say, he's on all the training videos. He's been around the squad of pre-season friendlies. It's just odd that he's not been announced. All I can put it down to is that we are trailing keepers, and if we don't find one we like, he'll be the number 2 rather than just the goalkeeping coach. But it was said that his contract that he was offered was, as it has been for the last 2 years, be number 2 and be goalkeeping coach. So it's just a bit odd that it's not been announced.
Was it right, Gaz, that Ash Taylor went to Gibraltar? Is that right?
He did, and he scored in the Europa League and the Europa Conference League. So he's already done far more there than he did for us.
That's a madness.
Do you think you'll get a striker in, Gaz, that you want?
I don't think we'll get a striker in unless Jake Young goes. If Jake Young goes, we might. Without Jake Young going, we look pretty stocked up front. Like I say, Cook, Oliver, Kavanagh, Young, Smith, and then Ibbotson as 6th choice. I don't see us. To be honest, the only signing that we look short of in the squad at the moment is that cover for Richie Smallwood. If Young goes, we might bring another striker in. So I don't know, really.
Couple of the comments then, just before we move into predictions for the weekend and the season on the whole. Lancaster Bantam, he says Young can go, being a PR disaster from start to finish. Ryan making the point as well that Jake Young, as you mentioned, now going into the last year of his contract, so therefore your fee now will be less than you could have got from him previously.
Sorry, Chris, just to go back on that comment, a PR disaster from start to finish. I'm not too sure what that means. It'd be nice to know, because I don't really see it as a PR disaster. I think it's just they just at the moment just don't seem compatible with each other. I don't think it's a PR disaster. I think sometimes clubs and players don't always fit with each other. I'd actually be a little bit more concerned from a Bradford City perspective that you've not been able to get the best out of a player like Jake Young, who's gone to another club in the same division and torn it apart. And it's the same with what they had with, I think, Owen Doyle as well. When he went to
I was just going to say that.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't see what the PR disaster is. It's more actually looking inside as a team and as a club to actually think, how have they got the best out of them players when we haven't?
Gaz?
The thing with Jake Young is he hadn't really been prolific anywhere until he went to Swindon. We took him from Forest Green, where he was back up to Jamal, Matt, and Matty Stevens, I think, at Forest Green. I think we've talked about
this. Yeah, he got a few off the bench, hadn't he?
Yeah, he was coming off the bench. He actually scored a really good goal that year at Valley Parade, where he beat a couple of men and ran from the halfway line and scored in front of the Cop at City. And Forest Green obviously went up, and then we signed him off the back of that, and he's come in, and he's never... and then he obviously fell out with Hughes. Hughes was critical of how he trained, and he obviously went off to Swindon and ripped it up at Swindon. He's come back to City. Like I said, Graham Alexander fought really hard to have him back. There was obviously interest in him. I know that Carlisle put a bid in for him. He didn't go because they didn't match our valuation. There were other clubs interested in him as well. The decision was made, presumably Alexander along with everyone else, because Alexander wanted to keep him, that he would stay. But then he got a bad hamstring injury not long after he'd come back, and he missed the end of the season. He's been away, I believe, at Bishop, what's it called? Bishop, where they go to have recuperate, the England training place.
St George's Park.
St George's Park, that's the one, Lou. Yeah, he's been away there doing some specialist rehab work. He's come back, he's trained and played in pre-season, and now this has come up with him, obviously not playing the last couple of friendlies. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. The other point I'd like to make about the team looking at Saturday, where we do look really strong, is attacking central midfield. Now, we've got a lot of eights. We finished the end of last season with Bobby Poynton and Jamie Walker playing as the 2 eights. We looked a real goal threat for the first time in a long time. However, we now also have Sarcevic and we have Alex Patterson back fit. Alex Patterson has been really good in pre-season. Sarcevic is our big signing, and you would imagine will play. So it'll be interesting to see what that selection is there. Like I said, with Walker, Poynton, Patterson, Sarcevic, Clark of the Wolves play there. If we're going along with sticking with the team from last season and one that finished well, for me, you should be sticking with Jamie Walker and Bobby Poynton until you need to make a change. But I think it'll be Sarcevic and possibly Patterson who start on Saturday at MK Dons.
As you mentioned, MK Dons it is, and obviously for Graham Alexander, he's going back to an old home where it didn't quite work out for him at the start of last season, it's fair to say. What's your take on them? And obviously MK Dons, I think they're certainly one of many people's and the bookies' favourites for promotion, amongst the favourites for promotion.
Yeah, I think they'll win the league. I've got them and Port Vale as the top two. Port Vale have made some fantastic signings, by the way. You look at the business that they've done this summer.
Say your piece, Downsy. Go on, I dare you.
They've got Darren Moore as manager there, so they won't be finishing top two.
There you go, Gaz. You're back on, sir.
But yeah, MK Dons, we played them and got hammered at their place last season, and then played them again at Valley Parade, and we hammered them. Now, that was a really interesting game at the one at Valley Parade. It was on a Tuesday night towards the end of last season. MK Dons played some great football, as you would expect, under Mike Williamson, had a lot of the ball, looked really, really attacking, but we just picked them off on the break 3 or 4 times, beat them 4-0. I don't see that happening on Saturday. Like I say, I think they'll win the league and Port Vale will be second. It's a really tough start for us, and I can't see past us getting beat on Saturday, unfortunately.
Score, if you were to be pushed for one?
However much I've gone on about as being a goal threat at the end of last season, and that changing that attacking midfield worries me, and I think they could do us 2-0.
And then you take for the season overall, and you said right at the start of this section, 8th is it just as simply as you said before that there's just too many sides that you think will pip you? But I mean, if you're finishing 8th, you're going to come bloody close, so it might go your way. Surely you might get 7th.
Yeah, I don't share the negativity that some have got on Twitter, where we'll be like lower mid-table, 14th, 16th area. I don't think we'll be that low. I think we'll be in the playoff hunt for most of the season. I look at the squads. I think there's a lot of good business been done in League Two. Like I say, I mentioned Port Vale the few minutes ago. I think they'll be up there. MK Dons, Doncaster,
Carlisle will be up there.
Carlisle have got money. Obviously, signed Charlie White. He'll score goals in League Two. I just I did my table. I put it in the group chat. Yeah. I just had as 8th. But I think we'll be in the playoff hunt for most of the season and probably just miss out. That's me sitting on the fence.
Jay, Bradford City this season and for Saturday away MK Dons. What do you reckon?
Yeah, first off for MK Dons, I think it's a really, really tough first game. I think, as Gaz has said, MK Dons will be right up there. They always will be, won't they? They're going to be one of them that when they're in League Two, they're always competing, and when they're in League One, they're probably always struggling a bit further down towards the bottom. Seems to be that they've just kind of fallen into that kind of groove now over the last few years. So, I would probably predict 2-0, 2-1, something like that. But I don't think that then means it's all high and dry for City. I think they've got a lot to like. I tend to agree with Gaz that it's probably a good thing that they've not had a lot of churn and resetting all over again. I don't think that's ever particularly good. And progression of the players that you keep is almost as important as signing shiny new toys. It's just not as exciting for fans sometimes. Unfortunately, I really like the signing of Sarcevic. I got a bit excited about it for you guys when it were announced. I think we spoke about him and his midfield partner who ended up going to. He's got to Port Vale, right?
He's got Port Vale, Crowsdale, yeah.
Making him slipping the line for a minute. But he's a leader. He's a proper midfielder. Like, he'll be up and down. I just really, really like him as a top player. I think you're going to need. I know you've just mentioned Tyreek Wright and potentially converting him into a wing back. I'm not really a particular fan of that. But if you're playing 3-5-2, then I understand that's probably all that you can. The only place that you can kind of put him. But you kind of need somebody like him who's got a little bit of X factor about him to step up and really make the difference in League Two. A few years ago, it was talked about potentially being a Championship top-end League One player. So now that he's coming down to League Two, he needs to be that man for you and step up. I think Jamie Walker, keeping him fit, is absolutely massive for City. He has got no place being in League Two. He's easily a League One player. I'd actually put him in the Championship, the bottom end of the Championship. He's a top player. He could have done it in SPL, couldn't he?
Yeah. So, I think with Walker is, like you say, it's keeping him fit, and I'm more positive this year that if he is to get injured, we've got players who can come in, which we haven't had before. But Walker's my favourite City player, or one of my favourite.
Yeah, he's a cut above. I mean, I've probably watched him, I'd say 10 times or so for City. Because I spent a lot of time there when I were doing some work for Stockport, and he always just stood up. You could always tell he had that, the way that he scanned, looking, the way that he kind of understood the pitch and what were around him, his technique, his ability. He's just a top player.
He's always in the game, Jay. He's always in the game. He's never. Yeah. He's never like, you never say, "Oh, Walker quiet." You never say that.
Yeah, but just injured too much. So I think. A good side of it, a bit like what Chris was kind of alluding to there. If it goes on the right side for City, they'll finish in the playoffs. If it goes a little bit wrong for City, they'll probably finish just outside the top 10, 11th, 12th, something like that. I kind of always thought when I was looking at everything that they've done, the way that the league's shaping up, you haven't got Wrexham and Stockport in there this year, who obviously kind of took 2 spots from the National League up, but you have got Chesterfield, who are all of a sudden the favourites for the division. So it's a tricky one. I predict that they'll finish between 6th and 10th. I know it's a little bit sitting on the fence, but in and around that kind of. I know 7th is playoffs, but 6 to 10, something like that.
Danza?
Yeah, I think just as Gaz was positive for Town, I'm going to be positive for City. I believe in Graham Alexander. I think he's a top coach. I think, yes, you might not have got the most glamorous of signings at Sarcevic's side. I believe in the fact that Alexander, much like Duff, is a superb coach at the level that he is, and he can make that difference. I think Bobby Poynton is probably, I will be most excited about him. I think he's a great talent at City. I think he can score a lot of goals this season for you from that position that he plays. So I will be excited as a City fan if they get it right, particularly in the attacking midfield area for sure. It'd be interesting to see what Jake Young does or what City do with Jake Young. So, yeah, I'm positive for City. I think they'll finish 4th in the playoffs. I think they're going to finish in the playoffs. I think they'll finish 4th and they'll have a much better campaign this time around. The big thing for City is let's hope that the off-field crap that always happens at City doesn't take much away from what happens on the field and that the positivity can continue. Yes, it's a hard game against MK Dons, who I predict will be up there, like we all think. But I'm going to go with a City 2, MK Dons 1, and I think they've got just like Town have at Peterborough. I think they've got a very hard opening day, but once you get over that hard opening day, whatever happens on the opening day, you've got to then crack on with the rest of the season, haven't you?
What I will say, just on what Downsy said there, I agree 100%. We've got to stick with the manager now. If it does turn toxic in October, November, like it normally does, it's about time that we stuck with somebody. I think Alexander's the right man to do that with, and I think hopefully we will do. I think David Sharp might have a bit of an influence there, and hopefully we ride it out a bit this time. And I think we could, if we do get that dodgy patch and fans get toxic, I'd like to see us come out the other side this time rather than jumping ship.
I'd love to see City go up. I absolutely would. I'd love to see City. Just to see Gazza's face. I think, the fact that he can come on the next season, all positive, looking forward to League One.
It'd be nice to have you all three in the same division.
Yeah, I was going to say looking forward to League One with a mix of Lincoln and Huddersfield as well. Predictions wise for me for Saturday, I'm going to go because I'll be honest, I am still childish enough to not really like acknowledging MK Dons as a club. So I hope that Bradford smash them. So I'm going to go for a 3-0 Bradford win. Mostly out of dislike to MK Dons. And for the season, I'm going to go. I mean, you might want to make a note of this as well, Lou. I'm agreeing with Downs. I'm going 4th for Bradford City. You know what? I actually kind of want to go for 3rd, but it's going to be. I think overall, obviously, League One, as we were saying, is a bloody strong division this season, and a particularly even division. I do think that race for like the top 7 or 8 sides, top maybe even 9 or 10 in League Two, is going to be a real battle. It's going to be a hell of a dogfight. There's a lot of sides that we'll be eyeing up, getting into those top 7 places, obviously going for the playoffs. So, but I think Bradford will be thereabouts. I spoke to a few Motherwell fans at the weekend who were less than complimentary about Graham Alexander, but I think at Bradford City, in that particular shade of claret and amber, he will do all right this season. I'm going to go for 4th. For
if Port Vale sack Darren Moore early enough, they'll get top 2. But there we go.
The signings they've made are phenomenal. They really are. If you look,
it's just a shame, Gaz, that they've got a manager that doesn't understand how to play football.
He did it with Sheffield Wednesday, mate.
He did it with Sheffield Wednesday.
Maybe just something about that Huddersfield and Doncaster. Yeah.
Let's be fair. He's got a decent track record before Huddersfield. Admittedly, second half of the season wasn't great for Port Vale, but he's putting together a very good squad there. And I would not be surprised to see Port Vale be a top 3, in fact, probably a title-winning side potentially. And I don't know why. I've always had this thing for Port Vale. I've never disliked them as a club, and I would love them even more if Darren Moore brings success there. Just to see Port Vale turn up at the John Smiths next season in 25-26. And get a win at Huddersfield.
You just look at the business they've done. Like you look at MK Dons, Notts County, Port Vale, Doncaster, Chesterfield. I think they've all done really good business this year, and like you said, Carlisle as well. So that's why I've got us 8th, just after that top 7. The Oracle. I want to know what the Oracle.
Thing is, there is just before we come to Lou, there will always be a surprise package as well. There will always be a side.
Look at Crawley last year.
Nobody fancied Croy last season, and they went and bloody did it. So there will always be somebody that's lower down, perhaps a Barrow, perhaps Barrow, the main one I'm looking at, to be fair, that might just surprise you. Lou, your take for City this season from an Avenue perspective?
I'm going to say, this is going to please a few people. So in the past, I have been critical of Bradford City, tongue-in-cheek a little bit, but also I think they have massively underachieved of what we should be doing. And I know this might sting a bit for some Bantams fans, but I actually think City absolutely deserve to be in League Two. They have been traditionally in the past 10 years a League Two club. But because they rode that crest of a wave against Chelsea in the cup competitions and had a few good seasons and were very close to getting the championship, it's kind of stagnated, as a lot of people kind of know. I think there's a little bit of fickleness sometimes with Bradford fans in terms of expecting more than probably what they're capable of doing. But I actually say this season, I think this is a season that we have a really good season. And the reasons for that are, number one, Graham Alexander, because I think for me, he's a very shrewd manager. He's recruited, for me, exceptionally well. And I know I've tried to pick Gaz up a little bit off the floor sometimes, but I think the signings of Baldwin, Burns, Sarcevic, Wright are extremely good for League Two. And I think even the signing of Shepherd, who I've seen a couple of times in non-league, as a backup option, is very good. I look at the competition, number two, within the players. I think pretty much every position has got some really good backup / competition between each other. You look at like this Jamie Walker, Sarcevic, Patterson being discussed. Cook has got Kavanagh, Oliver, Tyler Smith to compete with. I think Kavanagh could be a really good player actually for this season for City. I think he's a bit of a dark horse.
He looks good. He really does. Yeah,
he does. And I think again to Jay's point earlier that Brad Halliday had a wow of a season, and to keep him and retain him is a massive coup for the club. So personally, I think City will get in the playoffs. I've put them 5th, which is the highest I've done in a long time, which might please some City fans. And the reason is because I think they're capable of doing it. If, for a couple of reasons, they keep Alexander and the fans get on the side of the team and the club.
Yeah.
Because the problem is what happens at Bradford City is that when some of the fans turn against what's happening, that does have an effect on how that club performs, both on and off the pitch, in my opinion. Valley Parade does act as that 12th person. It's massive. And I think and sometimes what can happen at that place, and I've been there when it turns toxic, is it's not a place you want to play football. It's not a place you want to play football when it turns toxic. But when the fans are on your side, which is what we've seen in the past with cup competitions going in favour, you don't want to play there if you're an opposition fan. And I think, don't get me wrong, Alexander's football isn't going to get bums off seats and it isn't going to entertain people. But City fans have to be realistic with what we're going to expect on the pitch in terms of the actual style and identity that the team will do, but it will grind out victories, which is what City need now. And I think, again, to echo what Gaz said last week in the week before, is consistency. You can't have 8 games winning and 8 games losing and go on that kind of roller coaster of emotions. It needs to be a bit more flatline. And that will probably dilute some of that toxicity, really. So I would say City to finish 5th. And I actually think because how strong the look in defence to kind of nullify a really good team like MK Dons, and Williamson will play football. His team will probably overplay football. You can almost expect, for those that might not be familiar, probably a bit of a Pep style of football. Having watched him at Gateshead, the way he plays football, he will get his teams to pass and pass and pass and pass.
Russell Martin-esque.
Yeah, but I think City's stubbornness, and I think some of the firepower that they've got now with Sarcevic, Poynton, Cook, Walker, I think can catch them. So I'm saying 1-1, but it wouldn't surprise me if City came out on top.
Thanks, Lou.
No worries, mate.
There we go. To be fair, that home form, I think, by Parade is massive this coming season. It really is. And look, as Lou said, he's been there when City fans have turned. All I'm going to say, Gaz, is I was there a couple of years ago for Bradford 1, Rochdale 2 in a cold January Tuesday night, and my God, it didn't take long to turn that night either.
I've been there on both sides of that at Valley Parade.
Get behind him. It's great.
Lou is absolutely spot on with what he's just said. I mean, I've been there a few times over the last couple of seasons when it's gone real south. I were there when the Scottish manager were there, Adams.
Derek Adams.
And I mean, my word, like it literally, the team just went against him so quickly when it went badly. But then I were there that day when we went 1-0 up and as a Leeds fan, and the place was raucous and they absolutely carried the team over the line. I mean, we were terrible at the time and down to 10 men, but the City team, you could feel the City fans pulling the ball over the line because they believed in the team, and it has got that kind of factor. And Lou's spot on, like they have to get behind them because they're capable. They're capable of being a bit of a juggernaut.
And it's really difficult, and I know we'll move on very quickly, but like what Gaz said about the stuff that's been said off the field and all that kind of weird circus that seems to just hang over City sometimes. It's hard to ignore, but at some occasion you just got to ignore it and back the players on the pitch, because when you get behind the players, that will parachute you up that division. And sorry, not parachute, catapult you up that division and get you into probably that League One table. I did a downsy, I know. But like going to League One, and then the off-field issues kind of probably look after themselves. But if City go into the top 4 or 5, then the budget doesn't become an issue. It's if you get on a losing run and that negativity. But yeah, like I say, the City fans have definitely got to get behind them. You get behind them, the club will do well this season. Simple as that.
Please tweet us if you see anybody parachuting upwards, by the way, because it'll be a miracle.
Go on, Downsy, clip it up, I dare you.
Don't worry, mate. It will be clipped.
Let's move on then. Let's turn our attentions finally to our final segment of the show, taking a look at the non-league scene across West Yorkshire. And we'll start, Lou, our non-league guru, with FC Halifax Town. And obviously for them, the season starts Saturday as well.
Yeah, big start in a non-league. So we've seen the divisions in terms of the North Counties East League and the FA Cup kick-off in the past couple of weeks, which we'll obviously touch on. Now it's the rest of non-league that gets underway this weekend. So FC Halifax Town, their highest ranked team in West Yorkshire, kick off their season campaign against Barnet, who are arguably the favourites for the division. They look strong, and many people are kind of tipping them to definitely go up, which again is very difficult to get with the National League, which we see year on year. I don't see them running away with a division like what Salford and Wrexham, Stockport, Chesterfield have done. It's going to be much tighter. But from a Halifax's point of view, they've had an okay pre-season without setting the world alight. But what I do see is a team that will be in and around a playoff push with another cluster of probably 6 or 7 teams. From what Millington said this week as well, he's hoping to add 1 or 2, one being a keeper and hopefully another outfield player that will see them through ahead of Saturday. But I think if you're a Sherman, you want to do well. You want to be probably in and around the playoffs like you were last season. It was just really unfortunate when they're getting in playoff positions like they did last year and just didn't turn up against Solihull. Solihull absolutely blew them away. And I think it might hang over a little bit. But in terms of using that as fuel to galvanise themselves for this year is crucial because they're capable of getting in the playoffs. But, there's teams who have recruited well, Rochdale, Oldham, Southend should hopefully be out of the issues that they've had last season. Altrincham, again, have recruited well. So I think Gateshead are a real dark horse. I think Gateshead will be exceptional this year. So from Halifax's perspective, they've got to get off to a good start. 4 of the first 5 games at home. Like I say, it's that old football saying, isn't it? You'd rather play teams who are going to be up there at the beginning of the season because they don't get in a rhythm or a groove.
Yeah.
So that one on Saturday, like it's not a 6-pointer, but if you come away with a win, that will look far better than probably what you might get to face Barnet midway through the season.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I think it's. I mean, how crucial is it going to be the Shea home form? Like we've just said about Bradford, and if the fans can get behind them, and the home form is good for Bradford, how it could work for them. It's very similar, I think, to Halifax, and obviously starting with the fact that they've got so many home games stacked at the start of the season. Heaven forbid, it looks like the National League have actually done something positive and looked at the fact that they struggle with games, during the winter months and the second half of the season at the Shea because of the rugby league impact as well. That they've actually done the right thing, trying to get these home games on for Halifax and give them, a good chance of starting well actually there.
Yeah, but what I will say is the teams that we are going to face are expected to be up there challenging for promotion. You look at the likes of Gateshead, who I've called earlier, Barnet on Saturday, Solihull coming up. It's not going to be a tough game against Aldershot, Oldham straight after as well, Hartlepool. So, it's a real tough opener for Halifax. But if they come out, in my opinion, with, say, 9 points from probably the first 5-6 games, I think that's a very good return for Halifax. Again, the issues which we've highlighted, it's not just last season, but the season before, is the strike force and the amount of goals that they're going to score. We look across pre-season and how they've gone already. They haven't scored a lot of goals at all. They've scored, one against Hyde. They beat Mossley 1-0. Yes, they beat a Barnsley team, by 3 goals. But other than that, they've not scored. They've only scored 1 in the past 4 friendlies. So we know where the issues are. Dave, obviously we have on the show, has called out countless times. So I think, that will be one. Probably like the other teams we've mentioned, that may just look in a low market to just probably bolster that forward line. But for me, that would be the only question mark for Halifax, is if they can get the goals in. I wouldn't say they're guaranteed, but they're very likely, to use Dandy's sign, definitely more likely definitely to get into the playoffs. But that's where they need to fill the gap for me, and midfield arguably. But we've got Harvey Sutcliffe, who Jay may know from Leeds as well. Yeah. I think that's not a bad signing. I mean, Jay, what do you know of him?
Go on, Jay.
Yeah, he's more of a defensive fullback, can play centre back as well. He had a really bad injury, did his ACL around 18 months ago. He was on the verges of the first team prior to that, like on the periphery of the squad. I know he was really, really well thought of in the youth levels at Leeds. And yeah, I think even as far back as Bielsa was speaking about him coming in through the 15s and 16s, and I do believe if it weren't for that injury, it'd have been a serious, kind of thought about of being in and around the squad. So I think it's a top signing for Halifax. Obviously they on the back of signing Jack Jenkins as well from Leeds last season. It makes sense. They're local for these players, and I think Halifax have kind of tapped into a resource there in which maybe other clubs in and around, even maybe a Bradford, have kind of ignored. These players that are kind of leaving and then dropping down. So, I think it's a top sign, and fingers crossed for him. Seems like a really, really lovely lad as well, which I do think matters. You know what I mean? Like the personality of a player coming in, and he's got a lot to prove, and he's going to want to kickstart and make a career for himself. And he's one of them that hopefully for Halifax in 12 months' time, I'll be able to command a decent fee from somebody in League One or even League Two, So, yeah, exciting one, I think, for him.
They're always there and thereabouts, Halifax, aren't they? And I don't see that being any different. I think they'll be around the playoff picture like they normally are, and hopefully they can get over the line one time.
What do you reckon for Saturday, lads? A home game against Barnet, who are tipped to be certainly up there in terms of challenging for the title. Downsy?
Yeah, so I'm going to go for, unfortunately, I lost to Barnet just because I think Barnet's so strong. So I'll go for Barnet 3, Halifax 1. But I have got them to finish 6th and just sort of pick that playoff place again. But even though there isn't major Chesterfield ran away with it, or Wrexham and Stockport, and I do think that it will be more concertina in the league, so it will be closer. I do think that makes more competition, unfortunately, for the playoff places, and that's why it'll be hard for Halifax to get in there. Unfortunately, Dave would not want me to mention Altrincham, places like that are, teams like that will be battling for the same sort of league position. So, but hopefully they can do it. I'd love Halifax to get up eventually into League Two again. And do you know what? It'd be nice to see Dave, just like Gaz, having a right smile, knowing that the team's been promoted.
It'd be nice to see in Halifax in League Two, wouldn't it? It would be nice. I've got to say, I really would.
They get immediately relegated, but do you know what I mean? It would be nice for him to.
Jay, your take for them for the weekend?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a struggle at the weekend. I think Barnet are going to be right up there. I think, again, if you finish above Barnet, you'd probably be hoping to go up automatically, wouldn't you? That's where they're going to be in and around. So, yeah, tough at the weekend. Wouldn't be surprised to see Halifax on the wrong end of a 2-0 or 3-1. But similar to what the lads are saying, I think Halifax will always be in and around the playoff kind of contention. I think they've recruited quite smartly so far while not bringing in loads. There's still a couple of nice signings in there. I think it's Zach Emerson, isn't it? The young striker.
Yeah.
I think he's a really, really smart signing. And like I said, we've mentioned Sutcliffe. So, yeah, I think in and around the edges of the playoffs, mate. And that'd be a successful season for them again. And fingers crossed they do it in the playoffs this year.
Just for Lou's record, are you going 2-0 or
3-1? 3-1. All
right.
I'll put 2-0.
Gaz, what was your score prediction? Sorry, again, I know you said that you're expecting to be there or thereabouts in terms of the playoffs come the end, but your score for Saturday?
Yeah, I think Barnet's about as tough as it gets, like the lads have been saying. I think Barnet will win the league. So I just think, as others have said, that we've all got some tough games, haven't we? I mean, like you said, like Leeds have got Portsmouth and they've just come up. Town have got Peterborough. We've got MK Dons. Halifax right in that mix with their game against Barnet. I think they'll lose 1-0. I think it'll be 1-0 to Barnet. And then Town will probably finish about, like I said, 6th, probably just edging the playoffs like they normally do. And I say hopefully get over the line one year. Maybe 2-0 on Saturday, but I'll go 1-0.
Lou, did you chuck your score prediction in there? I can't remember. I know you said that you thought playoffs, didn't you?
I've actually tipped him to finish 7th this year. Just because, and Dan's makes a really fair point. I think just congestion, and I think experience might just go against Halifax. The likes to stop have left, which makes and Golden obviously was a super wing back for him, and Sutcliffe obviously has the qualities, but that experience might just be lacking for Halifax in that department. So yeah, I've gone 7th, and I think Saturday they'll just they'll probably lose 2-0. But what we will say about Halifax is that They always do turn up against the bigger teams. We've seen it against Wrexham when Wrexham went up. They did it last year against Chesterfield, both home and away. So we have tipped them to lose, but don't be surprised that they will put egg on our faces.
I haven't predicted them to lose. I'm
we'll never know.
Some of these things. For a 1-1 draw against Barnet, but I am predicting them to be 11th, 12th. I just think there's that many teams with more experience this coming season that I think it is going to be a bit of a difficult campaign for them.
Fair.
I think a lot of the signings whilst they on paper are decent, but there's a lot of young, as you mentioned, like the Sutcliffe is a great example, but also the lad that's coming, I think he's 23-year-old, the lad that they've got from Sheffield Wednesday with the long name that I can't pronounce. But it's a fact that he's 23, but in terms of National League experience, I'm not sure it's quite there. And there's other signings that have done similar. And I think there's just going to be too many sides that have got stronger squads with experience of the level that I just think it's going to be a little bit more of a mid-table finish for Halifax this season.
I could say it as well. I think Tom Pugh's a decent signing as well, though. I think, he
was their first one. That feels like an eternity since they signed Tom Pugh.
Yeah, I don't, at the end of the day, I think Halifax have kind of not survived, but pushed through over the last few years because of a lot of that experience. But you have to combine the two. And I think having that youthful kind of desire and point to prove mixed in with a little bit like that, like Sam Johnson is still there. And I still think they'll be in and around it.
I appreciate we're not going to be changing these season predictions, but obviously what can make a big difference for the National League in particular is the fact that the window doesn't shut until mid-March. So if there is always a chance for National League clubs to improve and to strengthen that there isn't in the Football League. So look, things can change, and let's be honest, a hell of a lot does change in the National League over the course of the season. It only takes a positive run, and actually you're right back in the playoff mix. But just in terms of where things are right now, I just don't see Halifax having that necessary quality, as we stand on the 5th of August to make the playoffs.
Well, just to update, we have all made league predictions and put our full tables in. We did ask Dave Foy for his predictions, and he went, "I'm not bothered." So
no, he didn't. But we're not allowed to say on air what he did say.
No, we're not. No, he hasn't changed position for this last bit. I love it.
We're not going to go into the predictions detail with the rest of the non-league
team. Muted, guys.
Sorry, I was saying I was sitting at dining table and my arse were going to sleep, so I've come
Clip that right up.
That's not being clipped up.
That's going viral. Right, Lou, let's turn attention then to the rest of the National League side. So for as far as Celtic and then the wider berth, because of course a lot of FA Cup action over the weekend.
Yeah, so National League North, we've obviously got a representative in Farsley Celtic. So Farsley, well, I mean, there's been discussions, signings, pretty much a new squad happening. I think it's going to be quite an interesting season for Farsley. And I use interesting in inverted commas because it could go one way or the other for me.
So I've just seen that they've put out the update from the chairman 2 minutes ago. Who does that at 10:05?
What? 10:05?
What have they done?
So there was a statement that were coming out from the chairman at Farsley. It doesn't really say much different. So there were potentially an issue with the pitch because they wanted to develop the pitch. But there was some issue that were found. But according to this statement, they've now got the green light for this proposal to resolve it. Whatever that means, don't know. Don't really go into too much detail. Planning permission for floodlights and electronic scoreboard is still going ahead, but they don't have time pressures like the pitch does. So there's quite it's trying to say something, but it's still been quite vague.
And they've done this now.
The key, I guess, the key line in this is from the chairman is, although it's not ideal, there is no reason for panic or alarm.
Yeah.
So take that as it is. Take that as it is.
Yeah, I think we'll know more. And they've mentioned something about the front of shirt. They've been in talks, but they don't fit in the moment the club ethos and values. There's a new kit release, which is happening Wednesday evening. They've apparently confirmed terms with the goalkeeper, but they can't name him and awaiting usual regulatory body sign-offs. So, again, some stuff, but without real detail of that one. So I think, So from Falz's, so from Falz's perspective, listen, on paper, which the famous Brian Clough saying it's not always I wish it were played on paper. They have quite a bloated squad with quite a bit of quality in there, which I think will have to be at some point trimmed down. From the last time I looked, we're still talking about 22, 23 players in there. I haven't seen the likes of Chris Atkinson being named, who's been club captain for a little bit, but they've still got the likes of Connor Branson in there. Obviously, Clayton Donaldson's still there, Darren Stevenson's still there, but they have recruited quite widely. The likes of Robbie Fox from Albion Sports has joined. Like I said, they've just signed plenty of players. That Alex Kawami, that people may know of as well. So plenty of players. But what I will say is I think this National League North looks, I would argue, I think there's going to be quite a strong top 7 or 8. Then I see the rest of them just battling out between each other. And I think Farsley, I could be wrong on this, maybe just looking over the shoulder, they're going to be battling with the likes of Leamington, Needham Market, probably Rushall, who they start the season against. Warrington may potentially get dragged into it. So there's going to be another cluster of groups. Farsley are always kind of going to battle against being relegated just because of the size of the club and probably the structure that they're up against. We'll look at teams in this league, for people who are unaware. We're talking of likes of Brackley Town, who've been in playoffs for the past 5-6 years and never got out of the division. Buxton have just gone full-time. Chester are up there. Chorley have grown bigger. Darlington, Hereford, for me, for anybody that's watching, and I don't normally direct traffic elsewhere, but you want to see the statement that Paul Caddis has put out about Hereford and his time there. It is, if you want to be a fan and you want to support your team, just look at Paul Caddis' statement. It is unreal. He just gets it. And I would.
Paul Caddis, ex-Birmingham player.
Yeah, Birmingham, Bradford City as well. But I would urge anybody to go and watch it, because if you're a fan, you'll read that and just that gets at your heartstrings. It just properly gets you. I think Hereford will do well. Kidderminster up there. Phil Brown's in charge, famous Hull City manager as well. Radcliffe have gone up there with Byrne and Jono. Radcliffe have just got that momentum, which Jay talked about earlier, that could see him through. Scunthorpe are in there. Southport have recruited ridiculously well, better than I've ever seen them recruit. So Farsley are going to be up against it.
Some monster teams in there in that division. Really.
Yeah, and the travelling is immense as well for Farsley. So I think the success for Farsley will be survival. I'll be honest.
Yeah. I think honestly, because you read through the list of clubs at that level, and obviously Chester, ex-Football League, Darlow in their previous existence, ex-Football League, Hereford, ex-Football League, Kidderminster, ex-Football League, Scunthorpe, ex-Football League, Scarborough, ex-Football League. And then, as you say, like clubs like Southport, if you go back far enough, to be fair, they were Football League at one point back in the 60s and 70s. And there's some really big clubs and big fan base as well. One of the clubs we didn't mention, who I know perhaps aren't going to be quite as ambitious as they have been previously, South Shields, get tremendous crowds up there as well. But I know they've kind of cut back the resources a little bit over the last 18 months or so. It is going to be hard for Farsley. I hate to say it, I think you're right, but
I think they'll go down this year.
Well, this is the thing, if they can finish the season in 20th and avoiding that bottom 4, I think they've got to look at it as a success, because it's going to take time for that squad. It's going to take time for Clayton Donaldson and the coaching staff to, I think, kind of get to know what they think is going to be the best 11 on paper, and obviously a lot of competition for players on the bench. And also there's been a lot of changes over the course of this summer behind the scenes as well, from, the top of the club down as well.
I think they're in a similar trajectory to what's happened to Avenue over the last couple of years. How Avenue staved off relegation after being a little bit further up the ladder, and eventually it caught up with them. And I think Farsley are in a danger of being in a similar kind of position personally.
Yeah, I think there's only so long you can survive, isn't there? So, hopefully they do well, but it's going to be a very tough division for Farsley to compete in. So moving on to the Northern Premier League, Premier Division. So our representative in that is Guiseley, which we spoke about, obviously during pre-season. So to kind of be quite brief about it, so a new management team set up with Mark Bowen and Danny Boschel returning after their time at Avenue. and their recruitment again has been, I would argue, one of the best in this local area.
Yeah.
They've probably given themselves quite a bit of pressure in terms of expectations from probably the fan base and probably around the league that they're going to be in the playoffs. Andy Welsh, for me, did a good job there, and I thought it was quite harshly treated in terms of how he left, because they were so close to getting to the playoffs, and then, like I say, this season just fizzled away into absolutely nothing. From guys' perspective, you only look at the players assigned. So locally, they've got Lucas Dunstan, who was Park Avenue's best player for about 2-3 years, and the way that he knows how Bower and Bosch will play, he'll be a solid player for that league. I'd argue probably on his day, Lucas is probably a National League North player. You look at the likes of Joe Cracknell's got all the experience in the world. Prince Polo, Lebanon Zember is in there as well. Reece Kendall stayed there. Obviously, they signed Will Longbottom as well, who's been scoring a few goals. Jordan Fulis, again, is renowned at this level to score plenty of goals. The list goes on and on. Moke, that's got that experience in the midfield. So I think Guiseley, for me, will be. I think they'll finish 3rd or 4th. I think they'll be that good because they know how to get the best out of the players. And what you'll know with Bower and Bosch is that they'll probably get 6 to 9 points just out of spirit alone, and that just gets them through them tough moments. They will miss Jake Wright, who's got injured for the full season. They're going to miss him. But then on the flip side of that, you've got the likes of Lewis Whittam, who feels like a new signing after his really serious injury. So, yeah, it's sad that somebody has to miss a season already. But when you've got someone like Whittam waiting in the shadows to come in and get that kind of frontline working when he's fit and match fit to go, I think it's quite dangerous. So for me, Guiseley will finish in the playoffs. I don't see them getting promoted, just simply, again, because of the calibre of teams in there. The question mark, as we always say, is Macclesfield. We just don't know what's going to happen there with Robbie Savage in charge.
Robbie Savage as manager, yeah.
Anything could happen. But in that division, for me, I've tipped Worksop to finish top. They look super, super strong. Really experienced outfit. Very similar to Guiseley. But I think Worksop will do well. I also think that some of the North East teams, I think, will surprise. Hebburn and Stockton might surprise a few folk. Gainsborough, with Russ Wilcox, is recruited again very shrewdly. I think Gainsborough will do well. Ashton, I think, will do well again. I think the teams that are going to be down towards the bottom in that division, I mean, it seems a bit of a drama, soap opera at Blythe. What's happening there in the pre-season results and the players, I can't see anything but bottom. But then they've announced David Stockdale as Norberto Solana, who's a manager, as a number 2. I mean, work that one out.
It's probably one of the most well-known management duos individually as former pros in non-league football by a mile. But it's just a case of how is this going to work with obviously the ownership at Blythe as well. The whole, I mean, from what I can gather, quite a lot of a turnaround in terms of players. I know it's out of our area, but it's a genuinely interesting situation to keep an eye on from a neutral perspective. You bloody wouldn't want to be in it as a fan's perspective. Let's put it that way.
There's yeah, I mean, I do follow some of the Blythe fans, having been in and around there with Avenue, and let's be honest, they're not too confident. You know, the last game, I don't think they've won a game pre-season. They've been thrashed by quite a few teams.
I think
the last game they started with 4 or 5 trialists in the last trial game, the last pre-season game 2 days ago. They've got Michael Woods, that people may remember. Harrogate used to get Leeds, Field. But yeah, they're looking quite thin on the ground, so that's one to maybe just keep an eye on the outside. But Guiseley should do well in the Premier Division.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on then to the NPL East. And look, I mean, we say every time there's 7 representatives from West Yorkshire in this division. Yeah,
for me, I said it last year, and I blow me on trumpet. I think I was kind of on the mark with the Northern Counties East League was being really one to watch. I think the East will be one to watch, not just simply because putting my Avenue hat on, we're in that league, but I think locally there's a lot to be excited about. There's 7 or 8 teams in our division that are going to be battling it out. So probably every 3-4 weeks you're going to have some kind of West Yorkshire derby in there. The North East teams are looking strong. The likes of Ashington, Concert, Dunstan, I think will be challenging towards the right end of the table. But what I will say is that I think the West Yorkshire teams will do okay. I think there's teams that might be finishing probably below a couple of others, but I don't really see at the moment anybody really struggling at the bottom end of the table from our region. Fingers crossed.
Did Downsy just sit on something awkward or what then?
Sorry, I laughed. It's just the fact that Lou said that concert we're going to do well, and I think I've got them bottom in the league that I put in the WhatsApp group. So it shows you my level of understanding. Mind you, I thought Peacock Fannel had not played a game so far.
But yeah, I think in that division, probably kind of just working as brief as we can because I know we've been on a bit, but. So Avenue's perspective again made another signing last night, Sunday as we speak. So Josh Askew, who many people may be familiar likes of Salford and pretty much every other Northwest team in that area you can possibly think of. Stalybridge,
Hyde, Salford,
yeah. So he's joined Avenue as he wasn't really named in FC United's squad. So he's joined Avenue. So Avenue's perspective finished off pre-season with a victory at Hinckley Leicester Road, who are the equivalent to the MPL East for the Midlands, and they actually finished fourth last season. So again, how much you read into pre-season is people's opinions, but not a bad way to finish pre-season. And on Saturday, kick off with North Ferriby, which is actually going to be quite an interesting tie, dynamically wise, because we've signed 17 players, pretty much a whole new squad. Whereas North Ferriby have pretty much kept every player apart from one or two. So that's going to be really interesting. You're not wrong there, Ian.
I guess there's City fan Ian looking across at the Horsefall and thinking, what's going on when compared to City's, what is it, half a dozen signings for City? 17 at Avenue.
It's because there were none left.
Yeah, they need to rebuild, though.
Exactly.
The rebuild was needed.
It was, and a reset needed to happen. And I think, again, kind of echoing what was said earlier in the podcast, that... And I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but that group of players we're used to losing. It starts becoming ingrained in the DNA. So when you become associated with losing, you don't become losers in that derogatory term, but you are, because you're just losing games. It's hard to get out that momentum. It's a habit, just like winning is. So that squad was decided to be broken up, which was unfortunate because there is some really good players within that group, but it was young, it was inexperienced. And listen, in terms of Avenue recruiting this year, yes, there is an element of inexperience in there in terms of age-wise. But what I think can be argued is that those players have experience at this level, the level below, and the level above. The likes of Josh Askew, Conor DeMeo, and Keelan Swales have got experience at the level above. You look at the level below, some of the signings that Avenue have made, the likes of Kareem Hassan-Smith, Sykes, Joe Crosby, Ollie Norman, were arguably the best players in that division in a local area. And that's being complemented with the loan signing of Alex Francis from Radcliffe, who does look like a Rolls Royce. Ben Whelan, who spent a bit of season at Sheffield, local lad. He's probably going to go on to bigger and better things, if I'm being honest. He's probably too good in our division. He just needs of experience alongside him. And then Riley DeSena's also signed, who was brought in probably in February time last year and got rave reviews. So, and Luke Hogg, again, experience at that level. So, there's pros and cons either way. There's, listen, at Avenue, you do get quite a fair bit of pessimism with it. But it's one of those that you've just got to ride it through. And sometimes it's water off a back with that one. But Avenue, I think, are expected to do okay. And we'll be looking towards the playoffs. Looking to other teams, Brighouse Town, which I know you just obviously shared from Damien there. 26th of August, a bit of a derby between Emily. So Brighouse kicked off their campaign with a 0-0 draw against Banalswick Town in the FA Cup. They replayed on Wednesday night, and their first league games against Cleethorpes, who for me are probably the favourites of this league. They actually started their FA Cup campaign with a 7-0 win. But we spoke to Grant Black a few weeks ago now, and he's relatively confident he's got a good group there. So hopefully Brighouse do well, and some of us will be down there on Wednesday night. So if you're around, it'd be good to chat with a few folk from Brighouse. Emily, they kicked off, obviously got promoted last season from the North Counties East League. They got through to the next round as well in the FA Cup by beating FC Helens. 1-0. Good result because I saw St Helens a couple of times last year in the Northwest and they were a strong team. They actually kick off their season away at Grimsby Borough on Saturday, followed by Newton Aycliffe on the Tuesday. And Emily, for me, have kept the core of that team. Yes, they've lost Ruben Jerome and a good one up top, but they've signed quite shrewd signings. I think Adam Clayton's there, Amir Birchall from North Ferriby, and they've also signed Luke Parkin as well, who's experienced and is in the politest way, an absolute nuisance at this level. And he will be a fan's favourite down there at the fantastic media stadium. So yeah, I expect Emily to do well. I know that we obviously spoke, didn't we, with Andrew, the chairman, and he wants consolidation. He just wants to survive. I actually think Emily will probably go a bit better than that. I can see him being quite steady mid-table. And if they get on a good run and momentum carries them through, they could be up towards the top, kind of pushing close to the playoffs. But again, Emily are very measured, very organised and very structured of how they're going about the business. So Emily could be a bit of a dark horse. Another dark horse, actually, is playoff winners Gareth. They've had a bit of a wow of a pre-season without really recruiting a massive amount of players. They kicked off their campaign on Saturday with a 2-0 win against Northallerton in the Cup. And they actually kick off with a West Yorkshire derby at Liversidge on Saturday, followed by Concert on Tuesday. So Liversidge against Gareth could be quite an interesting tie. And Liversidge actually lost at the weekend 2-0 to Sills in the FA Cup.
Great result for Sills on that.
Yeah, great result. I saw Sills in the first game of this season against Campion 3-0, and I was impressed. Spoke to obviously the gaffer, Matt Kavanagh, and they've recruited well. Harry Coates, really good signing. Jack Stockdale, ironically, signed from Liversidge pretty much a day before the cup tie, was on the bench but didn't play. Kyle Price is scoring goals again. And Silsden, for me, if they keep up that momentum, they've got Jake Cassidy, that people may know from Guiseley, but in the past at York and Wolves, he's now playing centre-back. But he's striking up a partnership, is a big lad at the back, experience with Harry Coates. There's not many people going to get past them at that level. So they could do well. But Gareth, they play, obviously, Liversidge, and then followed by a game against Dunstan, who, for me, could be a dark horse in that division. Just to wrap up a few more, Ossett United, unfortunately, they got knocked out by Widnes 1-0. They've had a massive turnover of players as well. They had a few missing. And I know that I'll watch actually the interview just before we came live by Dave Wild, who was complimentary, but was probably focusing on the league, which was an interesting way to look at it. I suppose you can do when you've lost. They kick off against Ashington on Saturday. Ponty, they kick off away at Dunstan, followed by Heat in Stannington, who got promoted at home on Tuesday. And then kind of going on to the FA Cup results. So FA Cup results on Friday night, where I was at the Horsfall Stadium, Albion Sports, were edged 2-1 against Trafford. Albion were unlucky. First half, they weren't really in it. But second half, complete change in midfield and threw everything at Trafford, and probably were unlucky not to take that to a replay. But Trafford did just enough. Campion had a really good result against Parkgate, 1-0. So that sees Campion through to the next round. Tomorrow night, Golka replay against Paddingham, which should be a good fixture as well. And Golka, again, attendances are superb at the moment there at the Sky Direct. So I think Golka will probably be hoping for another, 300-400 again. And it just seems to be, again, a really well-run club. Fackley keeping up some really good form again, beating Frickley 2-0. And then Eccleshill United are at home on Wednesday in a replay against Vauxhall Motors, which, Chris, you have a former EFL player to mention.
Yeah, would you believe Kevin Ellison? He's still going strong. I think he's about 44 now. But he was on the bench for the first game in the tie on Saturday, in which they drew one apiece. So
one pace on Football Manager.
I mean, I say he must be. I'm fairly sure he's about 43 or 44-year-old, but he just loves the game. Well, this is the thing. I said to Lewis before we started the stream, I was thinking about possibly going down to Eke. I was like, I remember Kevin Ellison coming on loan to Lincoln when he was young, and he must have been 30-odd then. I'm joking. He was, I think, probably early to mid-20s.
45. He's 45.
Yeah,
and he's a young lad, wasn't he?
Yeah, he just loves the game. You know what? It's a fantastic little story, as Kevin Ellison, in the sense that Like he just loves it. And to be fair, he's still as fit as a fiddle, really, in terms of footballing. Playing as the way that he does, and yeah, it's fantastic. So yeah, big Kevin Ellison. He'll be at Ecclesfield United on Wednesday night for their replay against Vauxhall Motors, and actually Vauxhall Motors as well, Lou. We were talking before, and rewind a few years, they were a reasonable National League North outfit. They were one of those clubs that you always remember the name of because of how it stands out. Obviously, the ground over at I can't remember what it's called now, but it's opposite the Vauxhall. Over at Exmouth Port, but opposite the Vauxhall factory.
Yeah, and they are quite a synonymous name, but obviously fell on a little bit of harder time. So, they fell down a little bit in terms. I think if I remember rightly, I think they took voluntary on it. I think, to just go down the divisions and kind of just make sure that they could keep the club going.
Yeah, mid Cheshire leagues, I think, is what they kind of took voluntary relegations to, but they're kind of on the way back up. If I'm thinking, they are Northern Prem West this season after a couple of promotions in recent years, so they're on the way back up. It's fair to say.
Yeah, and I think
really
so. That one,
Ecclesfield.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that'll be a nice little fixture for anybody who wants to go and watch it. So then you're rounding up obviously the rest of the action.
Burger. And Kevin Ellison hates Derek Adams, so he's got to be a good guy.
That's true. That is very true. There we go. If that's not it.
Just Jay's put a message in the WhatsApp chat. His clubs are as follows: Southport, Chorley, Conway, Altrincham, Leicester, Stockport, Lincoln, Stockport, Chester, Hull, Tranmere, Chester, Rotherham, Bradford, Rotherham, Morecambe, Newport, Ryland, City of Liverpool, and Runcorn.
And now Vauxhall. I'll be honest, I feel like that list's missing at least 15 clubs, but
that's his history.
That's got to be missing at least 15 clubs.
Yeah. Absolutely crazy, isn't it?
Is that enough to be my dad?
I'm not saying a word on that. I'm absolutely not saying a word on that one. I mean, on the division. Wow. On Division 1, so just to round up some of the action at the weekend in the league. So Nostell Miners Welfare suffered a 2-0 loss to Ilkley. Ilkley, for me, started really, really well. I'd like to go watch them a little bit more, but they seem to be doing well. Another team who've done well, Horbury Town, beating Selby 3-1. Shelley got off to winning start in their league. Now, after moving from the west to the east, they beat Harrogate Railway 2-1. South Leeds drew against Glasshout and Welfare in a West Yorkshire derby 1-1. Wakefield struggling. It's not the best start to the season for them. Another loss at home to Durnan District 2-1. And then Yorkshire Amateurs were thrashed 6-0 by Anthorpe Welfare, with a few other fixtures happening this midweek. But that kind of rounds up the non-league kind of review of league, cup competitions, everything else thrown in between. But officially from Saturday onwards, it's all kicked off.
It does indeed.
Well done, Luke.
We've talked a little bit. We've talked before about how good a resource actually the Northeast Counties Football League website is. Same applies to the Northwest Counties as well. The Northern Prem website, all worth checking out. Especially, I'll say, with Lou, as Lou says, all these divisions now kick off officially from Saturday, so do check them for your local midweek games. We'll always try and promote the local midweek games as well as best we can. When we're not on streams, we like to get to them ourselves, certainly for myself and Lou. And we'll hopefully drag some of you down some non-league games over the course of the season as well. I think we'll be at Brighouse on Wednesday night for their replay against Barnoldswick Town. I think that pretty much covers everything. I mean, it's been a bit of a marathon. Look, we knew it would be a bit of a marathon because there's a lot to talk about with the EFL, with that starting this weekend as well. Always a lot going on in the non-league scene as well. So a big thank you to everyone that has stuck with us from the very start of the stream through to now. There can't be many that have stuck the whole way.
Oh, Ian's definitely one of them.
Ian is definitely one of them. So a big thank you to Ian. Big thank you as well to earlier on to John and to Ryan for their comments, from George as well, and for Nick. To Damien as well for mentioning, of course, the game against Emily and Brighouse on Bank Holiday Mondays. That's one for the calendars, not for this weekend.
I'll see you, John, tomorrow. See you later, mate.
I'm sure. Look, John will be back just to fact check you what you say about Birmingham City on the stream tomorrow night. Our League One preview. I'll be honest, Jay. Are you in Brownie on Thursday? Are you going to look at a bit more of the Championship as a wider circle, or are you just going to be stuck inside your Elland Road bubble?
I mean, it's hard to get out of that, isn't it? But yeah, no, we will definitely be back on Thursday as long as Brown is free. I haven't asked him, but I've assumed that we would be there. Who knows what will happen transfer-wise between now and then, and there'll be plenty for us to speak about because the rumours are always flying. And then we'll do a bit of a preview for Saturday and the championship as a whole. I'd like to do a little bit of a prediction, even if it's just bottom, top 6, bottom 6 kind of thing. That'd be good also. So yeah, back on Thursday for Leeds United chat.
Don't do a review because Brownie's not going to the game, so it's pointless. Anyway,
I'm not even watching the game, bless him. I know. Wow.
Look, we all have domestic situations to take care of, it's fair to say. Excellent. Big thank you to my esteemed pundits, as always, Stephen Downs, Jayson, Booker, Gareth Walker, and Lewis Sale. I've been Chris Bell. Big thank you to everyone for watching tonight. Don't forget, check us out on social media, YouTube, just search for the West Yorkshire Football Show. Do like and subscribe to that. It really does mean a lot to us. Similarly on X as well, just search for W Yorks Footy. Until then, though, check out everything that's going on. League One preview tomorrow night with Stephen Downs, Jay, and hopefully Brownie back on Thursday night. For myself, enjoy the rest of what's left of your Monday evening, and we'll be back very soon here on the West Yorkshire Football Show.